Chapter 5:16. This must be an army of over 10,000, right? On top of the Serpent Spirit Mountain. Flying Snake and Batian led the remaining disciples of the 7 cultivators of true virtue to the edge of the cliff and looked down at the army that surrounded them. Even from such a distance, they could see that the ground was full of people. Flying Snake's eyes couldn't help but twitch in shock. At this point, he no longer dared to underestimate the strength of the great Tang army. Previously, he thought that the 7 cultivators of true virtue had the advantage in terms of timing, location, and manpower. If the Imperial Army wanted to capture them, they would have to suffer at least several thousand casualties. But today Li Zishuan, Dugu Xian, Dugu Feiying, and the Northern Yamen's Imperial Army taught him a lesson. The loss of more than 200 people was a huge number for Li Zishuan. But for Flying Snake and the 7 cultivators of true virtue, it was far from their initial expectations. Moreover, if Flying Snake hadn't abandoned his cultivation at the last moment and brought 7 cultivators of true virtue, who had recovered to his peak state, the 7 cultivators of true virtue might have already been destroyed by the Imperial Army. Humph! That Li Shimin is really muddle-headed. He actually mobilized such a large army for the personal grudge between Li Zishuan and you, junior brother. Sigh. Fortunately, they didn't attack us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to hold on even with the help of 7 cultivators of true virtue. Batian frowned and sighed in a voice that only he and Flying Snake could hear. At this moment, he was somewhat regretting his decision. Senior brother, I'm afraid that we can only hold on until the end of the mountain. Previously, the food reserves of the sect were enough to feed all the disciples for half a year. Now that we've gone through such a big battle, less than half of the disciples are left. The food reserves are enough to last us for more than a year. As long as the Imperial Army doesn't attack us, we'll be safe for another day. Flying Snake turned around and looked at Batian with a worried expression. Batian shook his head helplessly and said, "What else can we do besides holding on until the end of the mountain? The food consumption rate of the army of 10,000 is much faster than that of us, right?" Flying Snake nodded and said, "That's right. But, senior brother, just in case, we have to let the disciples dig some traps on the mountain path tomorrow. Otherwise, if they really attack us, we'll only have 7 cultivators of true virtue left to rely on." And what junior brother said makes sense. Hubby, you're back? Li Zishuan couldn't bring himself to feel happy at the thought of how Dugu Xian's guards had desperately covered his retreat on Snake Spirit Mountain. He dragged Bai along and returned to his home in Yongla City listlessly. As soon as he entered the house, Han Yushi, who had been lying on the stone table in the front yard waiting for him, hurried over with a joyful expression and grabbed his hand. Li Zishuan's heart warmed. No matter how much wind and rain he had experienced outside, when he returned to this home, he could receive the greatest comfort and support from his wife and other family members. He squeezed the soft hand in his hand and then pulled Han Yushi into his arms. He closed his eyes and said tiredly, "Wife, I'm back." Smelling the fragrance of Han Yushi's hair and feeling her heartbeat, Li Zishuan's chaotic heart instantly calmed down. Home was really the harbor of everyone's soul. Hubby, what's wrong with you? Did something happen to you?" Even if this person was her husband, it was still inappropriate for her to be hugged by someone of the opposite sex in public. Hence, Han Yushi instinctively wanted to break free. However, as the saying went, husband and wife were of the same mind. She quickly sensed her husband's exhaustion and heartbreak. Hence, she gently patted Li Zishuan's back and asked gently, "That's right. Hubby, I implicated so many innocent people and caused them to die tragically today. Do you hate me?" Hubby, didn't you go to encircle the 7 cultivators sect these few days? Could it be? Han Yushi recalled that Li Zishuan had been at Snake Spirit Mountain recently. She couldn't help but raise her head and exclaim in shock. My wife's guess is right. The army suffered heavy losses in the battle at Snake Spirit Mountain today. Many of our brothers died while covering for Dugu Xian and me as we retreated. I just returned from the palace. Li Zishuan sighed and let go of Han Yushi. He took her hand and continued walking forward. As he walked, he said, I'm a defeated general, and I even caused the death of so many brothers. I even hate myself now. Han Yushi frowned, and her face was full of heartache. She raised her head and said, Hubby, although I'm a married woman, I know that victory and defeat are common in war. Hubby, you mustn't be discouraged because of a moment of disappointment. I believe that there's nothing in this world that can stop you. As for the soldiers who unfortunately died, I will often go to the temple to burn incense and pray for them. If my husband feels guilty, you can take care of their families when you have time in the future. I believe that their souls in heaven will be very happy. When Li Zishuan heard this, he was suddenly enlightened. He smiled in relief and said, Imam, my wife's suggestion is really good. Since things have already happened, there's no benefit in sighing in vain. It's better to do as you said and take some remedial measures. My wife, you're really my great benefactor. Han Yushi said embarrassedly, How can I be as good as you say? Hubby is just a bystander. Oh, by the way, hubby, you didn't fight well this time. His Majesty didn't blame you, right? Li Zishuan shook his head and said softly, No, he didn't. The situation of the 7 cultivators sect is special. The result of this battle would be the same no matter who went. His Majesty isn't an unreasonable person. Of course, he won't blame me. However, I lost so many brothers. Even if he doesn't blame me, I'll blame myself. Therefore, I still have to find a way to destroy the 7 cultivators sect. Han Yushi knew that she couldn't persuade Li Zishuan to change his mind. She could only force a smile and said, Hubby, you must be careful. You promised me before that you wouldn't personally take risks. Li Zishuan pointed to his head and said with a smile, Of course. Don't worry, my wife, there's not much danger this time. Fighting doesn't only rely on the fist, but also the brain. After saying that, he looked around and asked, Where's father, mother, and Lan? Why don't I see them? Han Yushi replied with a smile, Father went to the tea house to play chess. Mother was invited by Duke Lu's wife to watch a play. As for Lan, she went to Cloud Mountain with Iron Egg yesterday. She said that she would help you build an academy, and stayed at my father's place last night. I don't think she'll come back for the next 2 days. Li Zishuan nodded and said with a smile, Well, it's good that they're all fine. I won't be at home for the next 3 days, so I'll have to trouble you to take care of everything at home. If father and mother ask, just tell them that I went to Uncle Nyo's camp and that there's no danger. Tell them not to worry. Okay. Chapter 5:17. Hey, did you hear? His Majesty sent 4,000 Imperial Guards out of the city the day before yesterday. It seems that they went to Qinling Mountain to wipe out a Jianghu sect. The next morning, discussions about the Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain resounded in a tea house in the East City. What Jianghu sect? They actually sent 4,000 Imperial Guards to encircle and wipe them out? I think it's called the 7 Cultivators sect. Hey, it's just a small sect. However, not only were the 4,000 Imperial Guards unable to take down such a small sect, they even suffered heavy casualties. A wretched man with broken teeth patted the table and said mysteriously, What? How is that possible? How can so many Imperial Guards be unable to defeat a small Jianghu sect? Meng Tao, you brat, don't spread rumors. A shirtless man opposite him stood up and pointed at the man with broken teeth angrily. Hey, Boss Mao, I'm not spreading rumors. My cousin is a soldier in the military camp, and he told me this himself. Also, I happened to see the commander of the Imperial Guards returning to the city with injuries yesterday afternoon. The man named Meng Tao stood up and said seriously, Oh, Commander? Then tell me, who is the commander of the 4,000 Imperial Guards encircling and suppressing the 7 Cultivators sect? I'd like to see which bastard is the one who lost the face of our great Tang. Meng Tao sat down, took a sip of tea, and said mysteriously, "He. The commander's identity is closely related to the reason why the imperial court encircled and suppressed the 7 Cultivators sect. F***ck. Which bastard is the commander? If you keep me guessing, do you believe that I won't beat you?" Boss Mao waved his big fist and threatened fiercely. Yeah. Tell me who the commander is. Keeping me guessing at such a crucial time. Even if Boss Mao doesn't beat you up, I still want to beat you. Yeah. Meng Tao's words could be said to have angered the crowd. The customers who had been listening to him earlier started to denounce him one after another. And Meng Tao was startled. He quickly put down his teacup and said with an apologetic smile, "Everyone, don't worry. Don't rush. I'll tell you now, I'll tell you now." The commander of the Imperial Guards this time was the commander of the Northern Imperial Guards, General Dugu, and the current Crown Prince, Jean Shirley Zishuan. As for the reason why the Imperial Court sent the Imperial Army to encircle and annihilate the 7 Cultivators of True Virtue, it seems that the 7 Cultivators of True Virtue have a personal grudge against Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan? Li County man? I say, Meng Tao, you brat. Don't King spread rumors, right? Li Xianan was the one who made the curved plows and sold cheap books. He has always been a kind person, so how could he possibly have a grudge with the 7 Cultivators of True Virtue? Boss Mao widened his eyes in disbelief. Yeah. Young man from the Meng family, don't try to slander Li Xianan here. He is our family's benefactor. Yes. You can slander anyone, but you can't slander a man from Li County. Poor farmers like us are all thinking of his kindness. It had to be said that Li Zishuan had a very good reputation among farmers and poor scholars. When they heard Meng Tao say that Li Zishuan was the loser of the army, some people in the surroundings immediately became unhappy and refuted. Meng Tao was very anxious and hurriedly defended himself with a solemn oath. "Hey, you guys. I didn't spread rumors, so you have to be reasonable. My cousin got all this inside information, so it's definitely not fake. I'm not lying, so you can ask around if you don't believe me. If I, Meng Tao, am lying, you can come over and cut off my head and use it as a piss pot." Boss Mao was dumbfounded and muttered, "Ah? Could it really be Li Xianan? Could it be that Lord Li really led so many people and lost the battle? I don't believe it. I heard that Lord Li is the youngest Grandmaster of Martial Dao in our Tang Dynasty. He's so powerful that if His Majesty really sent him to attack the 7 Cultivators of True Virtue, he alone can take down the entire sect. I don't believe that Li Xianan was defeated by them." Yes. Meng Tao, you must be mistaken." Meng Tao refuted, "Hey? You guys really don't believe me. Yesterday, after Li Xianan and General Dugu returned to Chang'an to get reinforcements, another 6,000 elite soldiers left the city under the leadership of General Niu. Now, in order to help Lord Li settle his personal grudge, His Majesty used a total of 10,000 soldiers. Tsk. Our Lord Li is really lucky." Everyone could hear the sarcasm in his words. Some people agreed with him, while others disagreed. What good fortune. I don't know what kind of magic potion this Li Xianan gave His Majesty. He obviously doesn't have any ability, but he was put in an important position. He's not even 15 years old, but he's already a third-rank official. He probably got that position by flattery. That's right. How could he use the Imperial Court's army to settle his personal grudge? It's fine if he used them, but they couldn't even take down a small martial sect with so many people. What an embarrassment to the Tang army. Don't listen to Meng Tao's nonsense. There must be a reason why Lord Li was defeated. Otherwise, His Majesty wouldn't have continued to increase the number of soldiers for him instead of blaming him. That makes sense. Hey, Bulsh *T reason. Li Xiannan probably sucked up to His Majesty again. Otherwise, he would have been punished by now. Bulsh *T. Bulsh *T. You're the one who's Bulsh *Ting. You're the one who's Bulsh *Ting. Your whole family is Bulsh *Ting. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but the citizens of Chang and city were fighting over this matter, which was supposed to be debated by the big shots in the imperial court. Moreover, as the person involved, Li Zixuan, didn't come out to explain himself, those who criticized Li Zixuan and thought that Li Zixuan was selfish and incompetent grew louder and louder. Li Zixuan didn't know about these things at the moment. However, even if he knew, he probably wouldn't have the time to deal with them. After all, he was very busy right now. Faubert, help me prepare some things. When you're done, send them to Drunken Wind Pavilion for me. Li Zixuan left his house early in the morning and went to the workshop. He scribbled in the study room of Drunken Wind Pavilion for a while before coming out with a piece of paper and giving it to Faubert. Yes, young master. Faubert glanced at the list and saw that everything on it could be bought. He nodded and agreed. Although he was puzzled as to why Li Zixuan wanted these seemingly irrelevant and useless things, at this age, his curiosity was no longer that big. Therefore, he didn't ask and went to arrange for people to buy the materials. Song Xiaoxi. Li Zixuan waved his hand, and Song Xiaoxi hurriedly ran over and bowed. Young master, I'm here. Bring 2 honest people with you and follow me to Drunken Wind Pavilion. You guys will guard the door and don't let anyone in. Do you understand? Understood, young master. Chapter 518. Zhao Siwei, the left lieutenant of the Imperial Army, was a brave warrior. However, during the Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain yesterday, Zhao Siwei protected his commander and died bravely. My condolences. Such a brave and loyal soldier is the role model of the Tang Empire's soldiers. I hereby confer upon Zhao Siwei the title of Xianwei General and bestow upon his widow, Yongye, 300 mu of farmland, 100,000 yuan and 20 horses. South of Chang'an City, Anluo House. In a 2-story house, the courtyard was filled with mourning dresses. I accept the edict. Thank Your Majesty for your grace. In the courtyard, in front of the mourning hall, an old woman knelt down, a young woman who was weeping like a pear blossom in the rain, and a 4 or 5-year-old girl whose small mouth was pursed and whose face was full of tears. After the inner attendant of the yellow door finished reading the imperial edict, the old woman stood up from the ground and bowed slightly. My condolences, old lady. His Majesty also said that if you have any other requests, you can let me know. If it's reasonable, His Majesty will definitely grant it. The servant of the yellow door handed the edict to the old lady and asked gently. The old lady shook her head and said, His Majesty's grace is already very generous. I don't dare to ask for more. Rank 4 Xianwei General and 300 mu of farmland. Logically speaking, Li Er had already given Zhao Siwei's family a very generous reward. Yongye Fields were also known as Shurya Field. In the Sui and Tang dynasties, from the various kings to the military governors and rank 5 officials, they were given Yongye Fields according to their rank. Their descendants were exempted from paying taxes. Such things were like iron rice bowls. With a few hundred mu of farmland, their descendants would not have to worry about food and clothing anymore. All right. Then I'll return to the palace to report. The servant of the yellow door was stunned for a moment before he bowed and said goodbye. Angel, please wait. I wonder if your Majesty can send my husband's body back. Sob sob. There's only my husband's clothes in the coffin now. The young woman in mourning clothes stood up and cried. Body? The old eunuch looked troubled. Seeing this, the old lady beside him quickly said, Wanqing, don't make things difficult for the angel. Siwei sacrificed himself for the country. Even though he died, it's an honorable death. Mother! But this daughter-in-law wants to see her husband for the last time. Whoa! The young woman couldn't hold it in any longer. She knelt on the ground and wailed. Mother, Wanner also wants to see father. Sob, sob. Wanner also wants to see daddy. The little girl who was kneeling at the side came over and hugged the young woman's arm, as she said with tears in her eyes. Seeing this scene, no matter how strong the old woman was, her eyes could not help but turn red. I will pass on Madame Zhao's message, but you have to be mentally prepared. Snake Spirit Mountain is not an ordinary mountain. The attendant of the Yellow Door side then turned around and left with his entourage. Are you serious? Was my husband really killed because of Li Zixuan's random command? Today in Chang'an, many families were holding funerals. In a dilapidated courtyard in the west of the city, a woman dressed in mourning clothes and another woman in her 30s wearing red silk were squatting in the corner and whispering to each other. How can it be fake? Changda family, think about it. How old is Li Xianan this year? He's not even 15 years old. How can such a young child have the ability to lead troops? Didn't he get this position by flattering the emperor? He did get promoted, but he caused the deaths of so many soldiers. Now in Chang'an City, everyone is talking about it. The middle-aged woman looked around. After confirming that there was no one around, she pulled the young woman aside and whispered, "But Li Xianan doesn't look like such a person." The young woman said in disbelief. The middle-aged woman said earnestly, "Sigh. Changda family, as the saying goes, you may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. You haven't interacted with him before, so how do you know what kind of person he is? Now, the families of the soldiers who died in the battle are all crying for justice for their men. There's such a thing? But didn't the imperial court already give us compensation? It's useless for them to cry for justice." The middle-aged woman said resentfully, "Compensation? Changda family, let's not beat around the bush. How much compensation did the imperial court give to your family? Is it 8 strings of coins and 10 mu of Yongya farmland?" "Ah? Aunt Jiang, how did you know?" The middle-aged woman snorted and said, "Why can't I know? I just came from Mingping's house. All of their families had received this much in compensation. Xinhe, I don't want to criticize you, but what can this amount of compensation do? After Changda left, this family can only rely on you to do some needlework to support the family, but your Baoyun will have to marry when she grows up. Can you afford a dowry with this amount of money? Even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for Baoyun." The young woman was stunned and said bitterly in her heart, "I understand. But Changda left, what can I do?" Sigh. "There's a way." "Who said there's no way?" Madame Jiang immediately became excited, and she hurriedly said, "Xian he! Look at Li Zixuan. He's still eating and drinking at home after losing the battle. His Majesty didn't punish him at all. Changda, Mingping, and the others were ordered by Li Zixuan to go through fire and water, but he's rich and has nothing to worry about. Is this fair?" The middle-aged woman's words were very harsh and could easily bewitch people. After hearing this, the young woman's heart began to waver. "It's not fair. This is definitely not fair. That's why the other families are all discussing going to Li Zixuan's house tomorrow morning to cause trouble. Even if they can't get His Majesty's attention and punish Li Zixuan for his crimes, they can still get more compensation from the Li family." "Aunt Jiang, this isn't good? I heard that many soldiers died in the battle this time. Even if the Li family is willing to pay, it can't be that much, right?" Aunt Jiang raised her orchid fingers and said with a smile, "Ha ha. Silly child, you're thinking too much. Do you know how much money the Li family has? Even if all 200 families go over, the Li family can still afford it. You know about Li Zixuan's wedding last month, right? The cost of that wedding was more than 100,000 strings of cash. Ah? More than 100,000 strings of cash? So much? The young woman covered her mouth in surprise. A hint of smugness flashed across the middle-aged woman's eyes. Then she probed, of course. So, Shinha, do you want to go with them tomorrow to ask for an explanation? The young woman struggled for a moment and finally nodded. All right. Ha. That's good. That's good. We'll gather at Mingda's house tomorrow. We'll go to the Li family together to ask for an explanation. Li Zishuan caused so many families to lose men. How can he not pay the price? Chapter 519. How is it? Did she agree? In a private room of the Grand Hyatt restaurant, a black-robed man with a hood covering his face sat on the couch. He looked at the woman in red silk below and lowered his voice as he asked in a hoarse voice. Looking at the woman's appearance, it was the middle-aged woman surnamed Jiang from before. She agreed. She agreed. Although that girl is a bit stubborn, she was still convinced by me. The middle-aged woman said proudly. Clap, clap, clap. And, very good. The black-robed man clapped his hands and praised. Then, he asked, including this, you've already convinced 30 families, right? The middle-aged woman quickly nodded and said, Yes. Boss, you really have a good memory. Not bad, not bad. I'm very satisfied. Next, as long as you can persuade that family, I'll give you 10 times the reward. The black-robed man laughed and said, 10 times? Boss, tell me quickly, I'll definitely help you do it. Hearing that there was 10 times the reward, the middle-aged woman was afraid that she would miss such a good opportunity and quickly replied. The black-robed man shook his head and said, don't be in a hurry to agree. This family shouldn't be that easy to convince. Sigh. Boss, what you said is wrong. The middle-aged woman put her hands on her hips and said, I, Jiang Tsuehua, don't have any other abilities, but this mouth of mine, if I say I'm second, no one dares to say they're first. So, boss, if you want me to persuade anyone, just say it. The black-robed man clapped his hands and laughed, ha. Then you better listen carefully. Next, go to Zhao Siwei's house at Anlofang. If you can convince his wife, Xia Wanqing, to go with you tomorrow, I will give you 10 times the reward. Jiang Tsuehua's face fell when she heard this, and she muttered, Of Xia Qing. This, the black-robed man frowned and said, What's wrong? From what you said earlier, didn't you say that there was no one you couldn't convince? Jiang Tsuehua quickly waved her hand and said, No, it's not like that, boss. Although this Xia Wanqing has a stubborn temper, it's still all right. The hardest to talk to is her mother-in-law. If that old madam knew that I asked Xia Wanqing to do this, she would definitely use her walking stick to chase me away. 15 times. The black-robed man did not say much and directly increased the price. Gulp. Jiang Tsuehua swallowed her saliva. She was calculating how much the reward was worth. Boss, this isn't about money. 20 times. Without any hesitation, the black-robed man increased the price once more. Deal. Boss, don't add more. Don't worry, even if I, Jiang Tsuehua, have to go through water and tread on fire, I will do what you ask me to do. Just you wait and see. Aunt Jiang? You're here. Happy Lane, Zhao Siwei's residence. Xia Wanqing had just added an incense stick to the memorial tablet when she saw someone walk in from the courtyard. Ah, that's right. I'm here to pay my respects to Lieutenant Zhao. Wanqing, do you still smell good? Let me light some incense for Siwei. Jiang Tsuehua walked over quickly and said with a smile. Yes, Aunt Jiang. Thank you for coming to see Siwei. At this time, only she and Jiang Tsuehua were in the courtyard. As for the old and the young, they couldn't withstand the hot weather and had returned to their rooms to rest. Sigh. We're neighbors, what are you thanking me for? It's just that Siwei was such a good young man. He finally entered the guards and even became a lieutenant. He had a bright future ahead of him. How could he be gone just like that? Jiang Tsuehua said with a regretful expression. Then, she took the incense stick, lit it, and bowed 3 times to the memorial tablet. Finally, she placed it on the incense table. Hearing Jiang Tsuehua mention Zhao Siwei, Xia Wanqing couldn't help but start sobbing softly. Jiang Tsuehua quickly came over to support her and comforted her. Hey! Don't cry, Wanqing. It's Aunt Jiang's fault. Aunt Jiang shouldn't have mentioned Siwei. Boo-hoo. It's not your fault, Aunt Jiang. I couldn't help it. Boo-hoo. Mother is already so old, and Wan is still so young. With Siwei gone, I really don't know how I'm going to live in the future. It would have been better if she didn't say it. Now that she said it, Xia Wanqing couldn't stop crying. Sigh. Wanqing. Don't cry. Our lives still have to be lived slowly. Oh right, didn't the imperial court give us a pension? That money should be enough, right? Xia Wanqing wiped away her tears and said, Yes, there is a pension. Although that money is enough for our family to live for a lifetime, I didn't give birth to a son for Siwei when he was alive. Who will inherit the family business in the future? Jiang Tsuehua was shocked. She didn't expect that the imperial court would give Zhao Siwei's family such a generous pension. It was actually enough for a family to live for a lifetime. If that was the case, she couldn't persuade Xia Wanqing like she did with the others. Actually, this was very easy to understand. As the commander of Dugu Xian's personal guards and the first lieutenant of the imperial army, Zhao Siwei was the highest-ranking soldier among the 215 soldiers who sacrificed themselves this time. His pension and reward would naturally be the highest, but the other ordinary soldiers definitely couldn't be given according to this standard. Otherwise, no matter how rich the imperial court was, they would still go bankrupt. Wanqing, you still have to restrain your grief. Siwei's spirit in heaven will also be happy to see your family living well. Jiang Tsuehua was helpless and could only think of another way. Xia Wanqing shook her head and said, But I didn't even see my husband for the last time. My husband was wise all his life, but now he's dead without a corpse. I feel very uncomfortable in my heart. Jiang Tsuehua's eyes flashed with an imperceptible light as she said, Sigh. Speaking of which, it's strange. This time, a total of 215 Imperial Guards died in battle, but many family members didn't receive the bodies of their loved ones. They only received a notice of death from the Ministry of War. Xia Wanqing raised her head and asked, Why is that? Aunt Jiang, can my husband's body still be sent back? Jiang Tsuehua pretended to be troubled and said, Sigh. What else could it be? Isn't it because Li Xiannan brought the Imperial Guards to attack Snake Spirit Mountain? The mountain path up there is steep, and it would take a lot of effort to transport the corpses of the soldiers back. Li Xiannan was probably afraid of trouble, so he didn't bring them back. What? A trace of anger flashed across Xia Wanqing's face. She stood up and said, Is it because Li Xiannan was afraid of trouble that he didn't bring my husband's body back? How could he do that? This is just my guess. However, this time, when the Imperial Guards attacked Snake Spirit Mountain, the people outside all said that Li Zishuan's command was improper, causing the army to return in defeat and heavy casualties. If it wasn't for him, there definitely wouldn't have been so many casualties. Aunt Jiang, are you serious? Xia Wanqing pulled Jiang Tsuehua's hand and asked anxiously. Of course. Wanqing, if you don't believe me, Aunt Zhao will accompany you to the Li residence to question Li Zishuan tomorrow. Chapter 520. Heartless Villager, pay with your life for my husband. Heartless Villager, pay with your life for my husband. On this day, early in the morning, 40 to 50 women wearing mourning clothes gathered at the entrance of the Li family in Yongla Lane, loudly shouting slogans. The strange clothes and special slogans of this group quickly attracted a large number of onlookers. The Li family should have been established in Chang, a city for at least 20 years. Before Li Zixuan was born, the Li family led by Li Jingma was a true merchant family. But unlike most of the rich and heartless merchants who valued profit over righteousness, Li Jingma and Mrs. Li had always insisted on being kind to others. Except for their business competitors, almost no one hated the Li family. In the Yongla Lane area, and even in the neighboring areas, the Li family's reputation were excellent. Later, the son of the Li family, Li Zixuan, returned from Mount Longhu and made many outstanding achievements, being conferred the title of Baron. The head of the Li family also became Li Zixuan. Under the leadership of Li Zixuan, the Li family still adhered to the principle of being kind, especially to the poor farmers and the children of humble families, bringing great benefits. The Li family's reputation among the people also rose to another level. Now, a group of women gathered at the entrance of the Li family's residence to make a crusade. Many people felt it was inconceivable, and the onlookers kept increasing. They all pointed at the women in front of them and talked about them. Hey! Whose daughters-in-law are they? Why are they wearing mourning clothes and coming to the Li family to make trouble? Hey! I don't know. From what they're saying, it seems like Lord Li killed their husbands. How is that possible? Lord Li and Lord Li are both good people. How could they do such a wicked thing? Hey! I know her. Isn't that Changda's wife? But why is she wearing mourning clothes? I heard that Changda was on duty in the Imperial Army. But in the Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain 2 days ago, the Imperial Army was defeated by the 7 Cultivators sect and could only retreat to the foot of the mountain. The Imperial Army also suffered heavy losses. Could it be that Changda unfortunately died in the battle? Hiss. If that's the case, then aren't these mourning women the widows of the soldiers who died in the Snake Spirit Mountain the day before yesterday? No wonder they came all the way here to cry. Li Xiannan was one of the main generals in the Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain. You can't say that, right? Which general has never lost a battle? You can't put all the blame on Lord Li just because of one defeat, right? Dear neighbors, the husbands of these poor women are all Imperial Army soldiers who died in the battle on Snake Spirit Mountain. They died because of Li Xiannan's improper command. We came here this time for no other reason than to ask the Li family to give them some compensation. After all, the pillar of their family is gone. In the future, they will have to live as widows and orphans. How can they live without money? Everyone, please be the judge. Are we asking for too much? Today, Jiang Cuihua was also among the crowd that came to cause trouble. When she saw that many people had gathered around, she turned around and said to the crowd with a sorrowful expression. Her act of pretending and playing the sympathy card really did arouse the sympathy of many people. So it's like this. If that's the case, it's not too much. It's not too much. Li Xiannan's family doesn't lack money. When Jiang Cuihua saw that the time was right, she continued to lead the women around her and shouted, "Black-hearted county man, you are heartless. Pay for my husband's life. Black-hearted county man, you are heartless. Pay for my husband's life." As soon as Jiang Cuihua's voice fell, the group of women also quickly shouted, "Black-hearted county man, you are heartless. Pay for my husband's life." Some of the onlookers heard their miserable cries and couldn't help but sympathize with them. As a result, the shouting in front of the Li family's residence became louder and louder. With such a big commotion, it was impossible for the Li family not to notice. In fact, when Jiang Cuihua brought the group of soldiers' widows over, the gatekeepers of the Li family's residence, San Bao and Fu, already noticed. It wasn't that the two of them didn't try to reason with them, but Jiang Cuihua was eloquent and insisted that Li Zixuan personally come out to settle the compensation for everyone. San Bao had no choice but to let Fu stand guard at the door while she went to the courtyard to report to Li Jingma and Madame Li. "Master? Madam? Not good. Not good. There are a lot of women causing trouble outside." It was about 7:15 in the morning. Li Jingma, Madame Li, and Han Yushi's family of 3 originally, it was a family of 6, but Li Zixuan, Lan Er and Iron Egg were all not at home, were eating breakfast in the front hall. Suddenly, they heard San Bao shouting outside. The 3 of them quickly put down their bowls and chopsticks. When San Bao came in, Li Jingma asked first, "San Bao, what did you say? There are people causing trouble outside the residence?" San Bao took a deep breath and answered, "Yes, master, there are 40 to 50 women outside the door. They said they want to see young master and ask him for compensation." This brat. Li Jingma's face turned green. When he heard San Bao's words, he subconsciously thought that Li Zixuan had gotten himself into trouble outside. Thus, he couldn't help but look at his daughter-in-law guiltily. What should he do? His son had wronged his daughter-in-law. Who should he speak up for later? Han Yushi was stunned, but she didn't say anything. In front of the 2 elders, she wouldn't purposely interrupt. It wouldn't be too late to interrupt after she fully understood the ins and outs of the matter. Compensation? What compensation? San Bao, have you asked clearly? Madame Li didn't believe that her son would do such a thing outside. She first rolled her eyes at Li Jingma, then looked at San Bao and asked, "Madam, the black-hearted county man is heartless. Pay with your life for my husband." San Bao was about to explain when a deafening shout came from outside. Madame Li's expression changed. She slammed the table and said coldly, "Humph! Where did this wicked woman come from? My son is upright and upright. I want to see who is pestering endlessly and ruining my Xian Er's reputation." With that, Madame Li stood up and was about to leave. "Mother, wait." At this moment, Han Yushi hurriedly stopped Madame Li and said, "Mother, they are just a group of pitiful people. Let me go. I will settle this matter, okay? The 2 of you should have a good meal first." Madame Li stopped in her tracks and looked back at Han Yushi. After hesitating for a moment, she nodded and said, "Okay, I'll leave it to you. Mother and your father both support you." Chapter 521. The reason why Mrs. Li agreed to let Han Yushi go out to solve this matter was mainly out of respect for this daughter-in-law. She felt that this family would be handed over to her son and daughter-in-law sooner or later. It might not be a bad thing to let Han Yushi go out to train now. The reason why Han Yushi took the initiative to take on this heavy responsibility was mainly because she heard the group of women outside shouting, "The black-hearted county man is heartless. Pay with your life for my husband." She immediately thought of the matter that everyone in Chang'an City had been discussing for the past 2 days, that Li Zixuan had lost the battle. She felt that this matter was not simple. If it was not handled properly, it would bring a lot of trouble to Li Zixuan. Therefore, she took the initiative to take on this task. The black-hearted county man is heartless. Pay with your life for my husband. When Han Yushi arrived at the door of the mansion, it was when the group of women outside were shouting the loudest. Her eyes scanned the crowd slightly and instantly saw who was leading this group of people. Some schemes immediately surfaced in her mind. In an alley opposite the Li mansion stood a man in black wearing a bamboo hat. When he saw Han Yushi coming out from behind the door, he sneered and said, "Humph! This Li Zixuan is just SOSO. After such a big thing happened, he actually only let a woman come out to do it perfunctorily. I don't know if you're confident or incompetent. Forget it. You're courting death. Originally, I didn't expect to use this matter to kill you, but now that you look down on this matter so much, you should be prepared to have a bad reputation." At the same time, the crowd in front of the Li mansion saw Han Yushi come out and also made a commotion. "Hey! Someone from the Li mansion is here. Isn't this the wife of the Li County man? Why didn't the Li County man come out personally? Neighbors, please be quiet. If you have anything to say, you can sit down and talk slowly." Although Han Yushi's clear voice could not be heard by everyone, most people still heard it. As the saying goes, even if you don't give face to the monk, you have to give face to the Buddha. Li Zishuan's previous impression of him was extremely good. Many of the onlookers quieted down, and those who continued to shout slowly quieted down. Seeing this, Han Yushi said generously, "Sisters, neighbors, everyone has been standing for so long. You must be tired and thirsty. Let's not care about anything else. Let's sit down and drink some water first before we talk about things. How about that?" Everyone was stunned. They did not expect Han Yushi to speak to them like this. Shouldn't the Lord and Madam be high and mighty? Seeing that no one replied to her, Han Yushi was not annoyed. She smiled and instructed Sanbao, "Sanbao, quickly arrange for someone to give everyone here a bowl of iced warmth and a cushion." In this era, although there were already stools, there were still many people who usually knelt on cushions or brocade couches. There were at least 100 people in front of her. It was not realistic for the Li residents to take out so many stools in such a short time. Han Yushi thought about it and could only let Sanbao get the cushions. "Yes, young madam." Sanbao responded and was about to enter the door. "Wait." Jiang Tsuehua, who was caught off guard by Han Yushi's strange move, walked out of the crowd and stopped her. With rich experience in fighting, she knew that in a negotiation, the one who had the initiative would get the biggest benefits. Han Yushi waved her hand and motioned for Sanbao to go in quickly. Then, she looked at Jiang Tsuehua and asked, "May I ask who this aunt is?" "I'm Jiang Tsuehua. I'm not worthy of being called aunt by Lord and Madam." Jiang Tsuehua pretended to be polite and said, "Madam Ju, there's no need for you to spend money. These are all poor people who lost their husbands in the battle on Snake Spirit Mountain 2 days ago. They're here today to seek justice from Li Xianan, so Madam Ju, please ask Li Xianan to come out." Han Yushi shook her head gently and said, "I'm sorry, my husband is not at home at the moment. His Majesty has sent troops to attack the 7 cultivators of true virtue for the second time. My husband is trying to find a way to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue at the smallest cost and avenge the soldiers who died in the battle. Yushi is sad about the unfortunate experience of my sisters. If I were in your shoes, I believe I would be even more miserable than you. Today, let's not talk about right and wrong. Since you are all guests, please drink some water to cool down. Then we can sit down and have a good talk." At this moment, the maids and servants of the Li residence came out of the door one after another with wine bowls and futons. Looking at the pink and gentle land that was emitting a cool air, many people couldn't refuse anymore. Although it was still early in the morning, it was still very hot in the summer. The women who had been shouting slogans were the ones who felt it the most. The weather was hot to begin with, and they had been shouting for so long. It would be a lie to say that they weren't thirsty. Moreover, the sight of the warm and gentle land in front of them made them salivate. No one could resist its attraction. "Hey, hey, hey, don't drink!" Jiang Tsuehua saw that most people had picked up their wine bowls and started to taste the warm and gentle land. She couldn't help but feel anxious. As the saying goes, one's eyes blind one's eyes. They were here to collect debts. How could they drink other people's wine in front of other people's homes? However, no one listened to her at this time. "What the hell is this?" Jiang Tsuehua stomped her feet in anger. Then, she picked up her wine bowl and drank. Drinking this warm and gentle land is really cool and thirst-quenching. Cough, cough. We've drunk this water and sat down. Lord Ju, madam, can we talk about business now? After a while, Jiang Tsuehua licked her lips and asked embarrassedly. She was still thinking about the warm and gentle land that she had just drunk. She had never drunk this kind of thing before. Han Yushi swept a glance at the crowd. Seeing that most of them had calmed down and weren't as irritable as before, she heaved a sigh of relief. When she heard Jiang Tsuehua's question, she smiled and said, "Of course, but what?" Jiang Tsuehua was overjoyed. She thought that Han Yushi was in trouble. "But before that, sisters, please allow me to tell you about the decision that my husband made." Han Yushi ignored Jiang Tsuehua and looked at the 40 to 50 women in mourning clothes in front of her. She said in a deep voice, the Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain was far more unfavorable to the Imperial army than you imagined. In the end, they were unfortunately defeated, causing 215 heroic souls to be buried here forever. My husband blamed himself deeply for this and couldn't sleep for the entire night. He had already decided that the Li family would provide for the lives of these sacrificed soldiers and their families in the future. Putting aside the compensation from the imperial court, the Li family will give every soldier's family members 10 strings of money every year. If you are willing, you can send the children of the soldiers to study in the Yanwang Academy in the future. There will be no fees. My husband originally planned to inform everyone of this decision after the Imperial Army completely annihilated the 7 cultivators of true virtue. At the same time, I also wanted to comfort your husband's soul in heaven. But since you've come to find me, I'll inform you in advance. My husband has a clear conscience and only wants to live up to his conscience. Chapter 522. Han Yushi's words completely turned the passive situation into an active one. If Li Zixuan were here, he would definitely give his wife 32 likes. Every family can get 10 strings of money every year? When the people below heard Han Yushi's words, they could not help but start whispering to each other. Among them, most of them had come here to seek money. Now that Han Yushi had given such a generous compensation plan, almost no one was dissatisfied. Lord Li is so generous. This is really generous. Yes, every family gets 10 strings of money every year. No matter what, it's enough to live. Tisk tsk. Just based on these conditions, I want to work for Lord Li. I told you that Lord Li is kind-hearted and wouldn't do such a thing that goes against his conscience. How about it? I was right? You guys just had to blindly follow along. Yes. Boss Mao, you're right. We were the ones who didn't distinguish between right and wrong. Madame Ju, we've all let you down. Yes. Madame Ju, we've let you down. We shouldn't have followed along. Not only the martyrs' widows, but even the surrounding onlookers felt that the compensation plan offered by the Li family was very generous. Some people even wished that they could replace it with themselves. Han Yushi retreated in order to advance and turned the passive into active. In an instant, she turned the unfavorable situation around. Jiang Tsuehua, who was in the crowd, saw this, and her expression became extremely ugly. Now, she and this group of women had indeed achieved their goal of asking the Li family for money. However, the Li family taking the initiative to give it and them taking the initiative to ask for it were two completely different concepts. Han Yushi's actions completely ruined her established plan, to completely ruin Li Zixuan's reputation in the name of asking for money. However, looking at the reaction of the surrounding crowd, she knew that not only was Li Zixuan not ruined, but he had also gained a good reputation for being benevolent and righteous. Madame Ju is really benevolent. I just don't know how long the Li family can give them the 10 strings of money every year? The more Jiang Tsuehua thought about it, the angrier she got. Suddenly, she thought of a flaw and asked. In her opinion, each family earned 10 strings of cash a year. More than 200 families would earn more than 2,000 strings of cash. She did not believe that the Li family would be willing to maintain such a large expenditure for a long time. A cold light flashed through Han Yushi's eyes. Jiang Tsuehua was polite on the surface, but her words were targeted at the Li family. This made Han Yushi feel a little angry. She glanced at Jiang Tsuehua with a deep meaning and said, Jiang Tsuehua, you're the Li family. Auntie Jiang, that's a good question. Our Li family intends to give each family a pension of 10 strings of coins for 50 years. A total of 107,500 strings of cash. Within half a year, my husband and I will raise this sum of money and hand it over to the imperial court. The Ministry of Revenue will distribute it to everyone every year. This way, No matter whether the Li family is rich or poor 50 years later, the pension money for the families of the soldiers will not be lacking. After learning new mathematics for so long, Han Yushi effortlessly calculated the total amount of pension for the 215 martyrs for 50 years. When the onlookers heard that, there was a commotion. Although they felt that the previous 10 strings of cash was a lot, it was still within their acceptable range. Now that they heard that the Li family was going to take out more than 100,000 strings of cash, this was really an eye-opener for them. Good. Lord Li is generous. Lady Ju is generous. What the f***ck? More than 100,000 strings of cash. Lord Li is really unparalleled. That's right. Today, these women blocked the Li family's door to cause trouble. It's really too much. Fortunately, Lady Ju is magnanimous. Not only did she not mind, but she also repaid evil with good. It's really rare. That's the truth. Under Han Yushi's step-by-step attacks, the scales of victory had already begun to tilt towards the Li family. The martyrs' widows in the field were pointed at by the surrounding people. Many people did not dare to raise their heads to look at Han Yushi again. A person lives with a face, a tree lives with a piece of skin. In fact, most of them did not have such a big grudge against Li Zixuan and the Li family. It was mainly because Jiang Tsuehua used some bewitching words to trick them into causing trouble. Now, in front of the Li residents, not only did Han Yushi not speak ill of them, but she also gave them iced warm drinks and clean and soft cushions to sit on. This eased the hostility in their hearts by a lot. In the end, Han Yushi did not need them to say anything. Instead, she took the initiative to give them such a generous pension plan. While they were satisfied, they also felt a lot of guilt. They kept feeling that they were the villain in this matter. Madam and Lord Ju are benevolent, but my family doesn't want money. I only want my husband's bones. I beg Madam and Lord Ju to fulfill my wish. Just when Han Yushi thought that the matter was about to be resolved satisfactorily, she saw a delicate woman in mourning clothes stand up and say, "Yes, yes, yes. Madam Ju, why didn't the Ministry of War send back the corpses of the soldiers in the Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain this time? How sad do you think it is for them to die without seeing their corpses?" Jiang Tsuehua's eyes lit up as she quickly jumped out and said, "Humph." Han Yushi's face turned cold as she said to Jiang Tsuehua coldly, "I wonder if any of the 215 soldiers who died are your family members, Aunt Jiang?" Jiang Tsuehua's old face darkened as she said weakly, "This, cough cough, no. Since no, then why is Aunt Jiang more anxious than these people? Can I understand that these people were all instigated by Aunt Jiang to come and ruin our Li family's reputation?" The voice of Han Yushi, who had been speaking in a gentle voice earlier, suddenly became stern. Her beautiful face was also covered with dark clouds. Jiang Tsuehua panicked, but she was an experienced person after all. After taking 2 breaths, she hurriedly explained, "Madam Ju, that's not right. Justice is in the human heart. I, Jiang Tsuehua, saw that these people who lost their husbands were pitiful, so I stood out to help them. How did I instigate them to ruin your family's reputation? I'm doing this for the public good." "Ha ha! Eager for justice?" Han Yushi sneered, then walked to the delicate woman in white who had stood up earlier and asked softly, "May I know your name?" The delicate woman bowed and answered, "I am Xiao Wanqing. My husband is Zhao Siwei, a lieutenant of the Imperial Army and the captain of General Dugu's personal guards." Han Yushi was slightly shocked. The night before, Li Zixuan had briefly explained the battle on Snake Spirit Mountain to her. At the last moment, Zhao Siwei had led the remaining Imperial Army guards and used his life to give Li Zixuan, Dugu Xin, and the others a chance to retreat. Han Yushi remembered this matter deeply in her heart. Chapter 523. So it's Sister Wanqing. Sorry for the disrespect. Han Yushi bowed solemnly to Xiao Wanqing and said, "Sister Wanqing, I've heard about your husband from my Lord Ju. I'll tell you in detail later. Now, please tell me, did Aunt Jiang call you here? When Jiang Tsuehua heard this, she panicked and said, Madam Ju, did I ask you a question? I'm asking Sister Wanqing. If you don't have a guilty conscience, please shut up. Han Yushi mercilessly interrupted her immediately. Anyone could hear the coldness in her words. Seeing that Han Yushi was about to get angry, Xia Wanqing also panicked a little. After all, the difference in status was obvious. She hurriedly said in a low voice, Madam, this Wanqing came here today without consideration, but it was definitely not to ruin Lord Ju's reputation. I just wanted to, all right, Sister Wanqing, I know you don't have any ill intentions. I just want to ask you, were you urged by Aunt Jiang to come here? Han Yushi smiled and patted Xiao Wanqing's shoulder as she said gently. This, Xiao Wanqing looked at Jiang Tsuehua hesitantly, not knowing how to answer. Han Yushi immediately understood in her heart. She said in a deep voice, Sister Wanqing, you all know my and my husband's attitude towards you. Put yourself in my shoes, you have to treat me with sincerity as well. Besides, if anything goes wrong today, both you and our Li family will only suffer losses. No one will be able to gain any benefits, so have you never thought that you were being used by someone with ulterior motives? Xia Wanqing was startled. When she thought of the whole thing, she felt more and more that someone was manipulating today's farce. Little girl, don't slander me. I just pity these women who lost their husbands. I'm here to seek justice for them. Seeing that the matter was about to be exposed, Jiang Tsuehua simply shed all pretense of cordiality and directly called Han Yushi a little girl. Justice? Han Yushi laughed instead of getting angry and said, Let's not talk about justice first. Jiang Tsuehua, are you admitting that these widows of the Imperial Guards were all urged by you? So what if I am? Justice for one person is the same as justice for 50 people. What's wrong with me calling all of them over? Jiang Tsuehua stiffened her neck and argued. Does this mean that you, Jiang Tsuehua, are here today to seek justice for the 50 widows of the soldiers? And you're not even taking a single cent? Han Yushi sneered. Then, she looked at the crowd that was gathering around her and said loudly, Dear neighbors, I, Han Yushi, have just married into the Li family for less than a month. I don't know what kind of character Jiang Tsuehua had in the past, but I believe everyone present knows very well. Who thinks that she will be selfless, do her best, and seek justice for others without taking a single cent. If anyone thinks so, please step forward. Straight to the root of the problem. Han Yushi's words directly hit Jiang Tsuehua's vital point. The onlookers also saw that today's matter was a little unusual, and they all whispered below. I know this Jiang Tsuehua. Not only is she stingy, but she also likes to take advantage of small things. I heard that the eggs laid by the hens of blacksmith Wang next to her house are often stolen. I don't know if it has anything to do with Jiang Tsuehua. It's most likely related. Earlier, when I saw you guys making a fuss, I felt that something was wrong. Now that I heard Madame Ju's analysis, I finally know what's wrong. This Jiang Tsuehua is eating and drinking well, but her mother-in-law can only eat and drink. How can such an unfilial woman be so kind to seek justice for others? There must be something fishy behind this. Yes. I also heard that Jiang Tsuehua doesn't give her mother-in-law food. Do you guys think that there's someone behind Jiang Tsuehua? It must be. Lord Li treats people so well and even gave so many good things to poor people like us. There must be someone who can't stand it and deliberately used this despicable method to smear Lord Ju. Yes. These women who came to cause trouble are all accomplices. Yes. Accomplices who can't distinguish between right and wrong. Chang'an City wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. The people who lacked entertainment loved to gossip. When something happened, half of Chang'an City would know about it. Therefore, after a while, Jiang Tsuehua's background was turned upside down. As the people discussed, Jiang Tsuehua's old face became darker and darker. The martyr's widow kneeling on the ground didn't look good either. Although the mastermind of the whole thing was Jiang Tsuehua, if they really wanted to talk about it, they were Jiang Tsuehua's accomplices. Madam, we were all persuaded by Aunt Jiang. We didn't plan to come at first. Yes. We were just at home yesterday to prepare for our husband's funeral. Then, Aunt Jiang came over and told us that this time on Snake Spirit Mountain, it was Lord Li's mistake in command that caused our husband to die. She wanted us to come to the Li residence today to seek justice. Yes, Madam Ju, we were all invited by Aunt Jiang. A martyr's widow stood up and told the truth. Then, many people followed suit and the truth gradually surfaced. Han Yushi sneered and said, Jiang Tsuehua, what else do you have to say? Jiang Tsuehua knew that this was bad. She looked around and saw that there were people everywhere. She couldn't run even if she wanted to. It was funny that she couldn't wait for more people to come. Now, it seemed that she was digging her own grave. No matter what, these people's husbands died on Snake Spirit Mountain. It must have something to do with Li Xiannan. Also, why couldn't the soldiers' bones be brought back? Isn't Li Xiannan responsible for this? Jiang Tsuehua had no choice but to fight to the death. She felt that even if she was caught and brought to the Supreme Court, she had to drag Li Zixuan down. That way, the mysterious person who was looking for her might be able to save her. You self-righteous stupid woman. Facing Jiang Tsuehua's dying counterattack, Han Yushi was not afraid at all. She looked at Xiao Wanqing below and said, the battle on Snake Spirit Mountain was a nightmare for all the sisters here. Originally, I didn't want to reopen this scar, but if I don't make things clear today, I'm afraid that everyone's misunderstanding of the Li family will become deeper and deeper. In order to prevent everyone's pain of losing their husbands from being used by despicable people, Yushi has offended you today. Next, I will tell everyone in detail what happened to the Imperial Army on Snake Spirit Mountain the day before yesterday. Chapter 524. My husband, General Dugu, and his younger brother worked together to get rid of the snakes and fought against the sect master of the Seven Cultivators sect, Een Batian. After a bitter battle, Een Batian was seriously injured and victory was in sight. Who would have thought that an elder of the Seven Cultivators sect would release a 3-zhang-long seven-headed serpent with infinite strength and venom all over its body? It was impossible for it to be invincible. Under the critical situation, my husband ordered Dugu Feiying to lead the army to retreat first. He and General Dugu led the remaining Imperial Guards to entangle the seven-headed serpent and buy time for the army. Later, the seven-headed serpent went berserk several times, causing the remaining Imperial Guards to suffer heavy casualties. At the last moment, the captain of the Imperial Guards, Zhao Siwei, led the remaining Imperial Guards to fight the seven-headed serpent, wanting to create an opportunity for General Dugu and my husband to escape. My husband couldn't stop him, but he didn't want the soldiers to die in vain. He could only retreat with General Dugu. Recalling Li Zixuan's narration of the near-death experience, Han Yushi's eyes couldn't help but turn red. She looked at the more than 50 martyrs' widows in mourning clothes in front of her and said in a deep voice, "The Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain was like this from beginning to end. What I said just now is absolutely true. The more than 3,000 Imperial Guards who survived can testify for me. My husband and I feel deeply guilty for the unfortunate deaths of my sister's husbands in this battle. But if you say that my husband is the only one to blame for this battle, Yushi will never agree. The terrain of Snake Spirit Mountain, the poisonous miasma, the peak Grandmaster level martial artists, and the seven-headed serpent were all unfavorable factors. If it were any other general who was in command and had the same number of troops, they would also be powerless. His Majesty and the other officials in the imperial court have already come to this conclusion. Jiang Tsuehua, today you are still speaking irresponsibly and slandering my husband's reputation. Are you more wise than the officials in the imperial court and the current His Majesty? Han Yushi almost roared out the last sentence. It was fine for others to talk about her behind her back, but she would never allow anyone to speak ill of Li Zixuan. Jiang Tsuehua had already touched her bottom line today. Moreover, Jiang Tsuehua's way of using the grief of a martyr's widow to achieve her own sinister goals made her feel extremely disgusted. With Han Yushi's last shout, Jiang Tsuehua's face instantly turned pale. The surrounding crowd also fell into a dead silence. Regarding the battle on Snake Spirit Mountain, they had only heard about it through some rumors. They never thought that the real situation would be so dangerous. Especially when the seven-headed serpent appeared at the end of the battle. Li Zixuan chose to personally cover the retreat of the seven-headed serpent. This move moved everyone. Other people would say that a general's success was built on the bones of thousands of soldiers. However, Li Zixuan, as a general, was able to achieve this step. No matter how picky a person was, they would not be able to find fault with him. Although they were defeated in the end, it could only be said that it was not their fault. In the end, the Imperial Army's personal guards who sacrificed themselves heroically said that they had bought time for Li Zixuan and Dugu Xian to retreat. However, weren't they also covering the retreat of the main army? Even if they did not sacrifice themselves, Li Zixuan and Dugu Xian would not have been in danger. However, more than 90% of the 4,000 Imperial Army soldiers would have died. Therefore, in other words, they did not die for Li Zixuan and Dugu Xian. They died in place of more than 3,000 brothers. Lord Zhu is loyal and righteous. We have wronged Lord Zhu. We deserve to die. A white-haired old man cupped his hands at Han Yushi and said in a trembling voice. Earlier, when he saw how pitiful these widows were, he followed suit and shouted a few slogans. Now that he heard Han Yushi's explanation, he immediately blamed himself. We have wronged Lord Zhu. We deserve to die. Even such an old man could take the initiative to admit his mistake. How could the others have the nerve to continue being ostriches? Therefore, those who blindly followed suit and apologized. Everyone, you don't have to do this. You were just fooled by Jiang Tsuehua's flowery words. It's not your fault. The one who is truly guilty is Jiang Tsuehua. Han Yushi waved her hand at those people, then turned her head and ordered, Pang Sigi, bring her to the Supreme Court for interrogation. I want to see who is deliberately smearing my husband's name. As the head of the Li Residence's guards, Pang Feiji had already run out when he heard the commotion. When he heard Han Yushi's order, he quickly cupped his hands and said loudly, Yes, young mistress. After saying that, he waved his hand and said fiercely, Go, take her down. Stop. Jiang Tsuehua widened her eyes and said in panic, You can't take me down. I'm just helping them seek justice. I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty. Humph. You're guilty. At this moment, an angry snort came from outside the crowd. Everyone looked over and saw an old lady in black clothes walking over shakily with a walking stick. Mother? Why are you here? Xia Wanqing, who was in the crowd, turned pale with fright when she saw who it was. She hurriedly got up and wanted to help the old lady. If I didn't come, Siwei's reputation would be ruined. Wanqing, you're really muddle-headed. How could you believe Jiang Tsuehua's slanderous words? That's right, this old lady was Zhao Siwei's mother. According to custom, elders were not allowed to wear mourning clothes for the younger generation, so she only wore black clothes. At this moment, when Xia Wanqing walked in front of her, the old lady did not intend to give her daughter-in-law any face in front of others. She sternly reprimanded her. Mother! Son is wrong, don't be angry. Xia Wanqing's eyes were red. She quickly supported the old lady and said gently, I'll talk to you later. The old lady used her walking stick to knock on the ground, then shakily walked in front of Jiang Tsuehua. Without saying a word, she raised her walking stick and hit her. Jiang Tsuehua, you blabbermouth, I'll let you deceive my daughter-in-law. I'll let you ruin my Siwei's reputation. You're still asking for justice? My Siwei protected his master and was not afraid of death. Although his corpse is gone, he sacrificed his life for the country. Even if he died honorably. Why would he need a blabbermouth like you to seek justice? It was obvious that the old lady was very angry. Every time she hit with her walking stick, she used a lot of strength. When Jiang Tsuehua saw the old lady walking over, she already realized that something was wrong. She quickly ran away, not daring to resist at all. The ancients valued filial piety. Although Jiang Tsuehua occasionally dared to bully her mother-in-law at home, if she dared to hit such an old lady in front of so many people, then even if the bystanders came up and beat her to death on the spot, the imperial court would not punish them for their crimes. At this time, the old people's social status was quite high. She did not expect that even if she did not make a move, others would want to beat her to death. When the surrounding crowd heard the old lady's words, they could not help but cheer loudly. Good! What a good sacrifice for the country, even if he died honorably. The old lady is deeply righteous, good job. Yes, Jiang Tsuehua deserves to die. She actually used the pain of someone else's husband to achieve her own unspeakable goals. She deserves to die. Beat her to death. Beat her to death. Go and help catch her. Don't let her escape. Brother Ji originally wanted the two marquis beside him to catch Jiang Tsuehua with both hands, but who knew that before he could give the order, the surrounding crowd had already made their move. Therefore, the old lady did not need to waste any effort to chase after her. She only needed to hit Jiang Tsuehua with her walking stick. In a short while, Jiang Tsuehua was beaten until her face was bruised and swollen, crying for her father and mother. Sob, Siwei's mother, don't hit her. Don't hit her. I know I was wrong. Jiang Tsuehua tilted her head to prevent the walking stick from hitting her head as she cried and begged for mercy. Han Yushi saw that if she continued to hit her, she would die. She quickly came over and said, Auntie, don't hit her anymore. I will send Jiang Tsuehua to the Supreme Court. She will be punished. Chapter 525. Mrs. Li, today's matter is the fault of my Zhao family. Wanqing's personality is simple and she doesn't know much about the world. That's why she was bewitched by Jiang Tsuehua. Please don't hold a grudge in your heart. I apologize to you on behalf of Wanqing. The old lady also felt that she couldn't hit her too hard, so she put down her walking stick. She turned around and looked at Han Yushi with a guilty expression. After saying that, she even wanted to kneel down and beg for forgiveness. Mother! No, all of this is my fault. Xia Wanqing was shocked and quickly pulled the old lady back, not letting her kneel down. Han Yushi was also shocked. She ran over and held the old lady's hand, saying, Mrs. Zhao, you don't have to do this. Your son and my husband can be considered brothers who fought side by side and shared life and death together. And you're so righteous. I can't even thank you enough. How can I blame you? The old lady waved her hand and said stubbornly, Mrs. Li, this matter isn't settled like this. Although my son has made contributions to the war under Lord Zhu, that's that. If my son knew that after he died, someone was still using his name to ruin Lord Zhu's reputation, my son would definitely die with a grievance. Lord Zhu loved his soldiers like his children. Siwei was a person who valued relationships and righteousness when he was alive. It was his honor to be able to serve under Lord Zhu. It was also his misfortune to die in battle on Snake Spirit Mountain. This old lady knows that Lord Zhu has already done his best. You don't owe this old lady anything. Instead, this old lady owes Lord Zhu. Han Yushi was both happy and heartbroken to meet such a righteous old lady. A white-haired person sending off a black-haired person. What in the world could compare to this kind of grief? Old Lady Zhao could still maintain her rationality and understand things when she was in great sorrow. No one could compare to this kind of benevolence. Mrs. Zhao, please don't say that. Sister Wanqing only believed the slanderous words of a villain. This was an unintentional mistake. My husband and I won't take it to heart. On the other hand, Mrs. Zhao, you're so righteous and helped my husband resolve the crisis. This junior still has to thank you. Xiao He, help Auntie Zhao into the house. It's hot outside. Han Yushi patiently comforted old Madame Zhao with a few words, and then wanted Xiao He to help the old lady in to rest. The farce this morning had developed to this point. Basically, the crisis had been resolved, and Li Zixuan's reputation would not be affected because of this. Next was some finishing work. No, no, no. Madam Li, you're magnanimous enough to not bicker with us, but this old woman doesn't have the face to enter this door. You just said that you would give my family 10 strings of money every year. Don't mention this again. Siwei's spirit in heaven would definitely not agree. She only hoped that the Lord of the Supreme Court would severely punish Jiang Tsuehua, this gossipy woman who stirred up trouble. My son has already shed blood on the battlefield. We can't let him shed tears in the netherworld because of these villains who use his name to do whatever they want. Old Madame Zhao hurriedly refused. Then, she pointed at Jiang Tsuehua, who was being held down by everyone, and said hatefully, Auntie Zhao is right. Punish me severely. Yes. Don't let the name of a hero be used by villains. Punish the villain. Punish Jiang Tsuehua severely. Old Madame Zhao's words resonated with many people. The onlookers clapped their hands and cheered. The martyrs' widows who were kneeling on the ground felt embarrassed. Even an old lady in her 60s or 70s could be so righteous. In comparison, they seemed like villains. Madame Zhu, our family doesn't want the 10 strings of money every year. If Changda's spirit in heaven knew that I did such a thing, he would definitely scold me in his dreams. Madame Zhu, our family doesn't want the pension anymore. Previously, I listened to Jiang Tsuehua's rumors. I didn't mean to ruin Lord Zhu's reputation. Our family doesn't want it either. We have offended you previously. Please forgive us, Madame Zhu. Su Xinhe was the first to stand up. She wanted to decline the 10 strings of money every year that Han Yushi had mentioned earlier. Although without a man and a pillar of support, her future days would definitely be very difficult. However, if she took this kind of money, she would be criticized by others behind her back. Instead of living under the scolding of others for the rest of her life, Su Xinhe felt that it was better to work hard and live freely. If there was one, there would be a second. Some thin-skinned and kind-hearted women stood up one after another and declined Han Yushi. The remaining dozen or so sat on the mattress as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Their faces were burning. Han Yushi first smiled and said to old Madame Zhao, Madame Zhao, don't worry. I will hand Jiang Tsuehua over to the Supreme Court and let them interrogate her properly. When my husband returns, he will also go to the Supreme Court to personally inquire about this matter. Then, she said to the group of women, as for the pension, it's a little token of appreciation from my husband and I. I hope that Madame Zhao and all the sisters won't refuse. Otherwise, my husband won't be able to sleep at night. Everyone, just treat it as helping my husband to fulfill one of his wishes. Yushi thanks you here. After saying that, Han Yushi faced the crowd and bowed graciously. No way. No. Old Madame Zhao hurriedly grabbed Han Yushi's arm and said, How can you give money to others and still thank them? Madame Li, you're asking for too much. Han Yushi smiled and said, Madame Zhao, what I said just now came from the bottom of my heart, so please help my husband with this. Besides, I heard that big brother Zhao has a daughter. Take this money as the dowry that we're giving to our daughter. That's right. Madame Zhao, if you don't accept this money, I reckon that my Lord Ju will personally send it to your residence when he returns, so you'd better accept it. Brother Ji, who was at the side, interrupted with a smile. Old Madame Zhao looked at her daughter-in-law awkwardly. After a while, she insisted, "No, we definitely can't accept this money. Even if Si Wei is here, he won't allow us to accept it. If we accept this money, our family will never be able to raise our heads in Chang'an City. Madam Li, you'd better not persuade her anymore. You and Lord Ju are both good people. Good people have good karma. I hope that the two of you can be rich for the rest of your lives." Han Yushi was helpless and could only say, "All right then, but thank you for your auspicious words, Madame Zhao." Since old Madame Zhao had said this, the other martyrs' widows also declined. "Madame Ju, Madame Zhao is right. If we accept this money, we won't be able to raise our heads for the rest of our lives." "That's right. Lord Ju has done us a great favor. We were in the wrong in the first place today. No matter what, we can't ask for money anymore." That's right. We can't accept this money." Seeing this, Han Yushi could only say helplessly, "Since you're unwilling to accept it, then Yushi won't force you. However, if you encounter any difficulties in the future, feel free to look for me. You cannot accept the money, but it's still right for neighbors to help each other, right?" When the group of women heard this, they hurriedly bowed and thanked her. Han Yushi smiled and looked at everyone. "Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, please disperse, sisters, neighbors, and all of you. Don't affect the other neighbors." Okay. Disperse. Madame Ju is really gentle, kind, virtuous, and righteous." That's right. County Lee's man has married a good wife. Ha. A talented man and a beautiful woman. This is a match made in heaven. Yes. A big show came to a successful end. Han Yushi's performance in it was really remarkable. These naturally fell into the eyes of those with ulterior motive. As the surrounding crowd dispersed, they praised Han Yushi repeatedly. On the steps in front of the mansion, Han Yushi looked at the miserable Jiang Tsuehua below and turned to Brother Ji. "Pang Sigi, I'll have to trouble you with her." Brother Ji cupped his hands obsequiously and said, "He. Don't worry, young madam. I have familiar brothers in the Supreme Court. I guarantee that I'll make this shrew spit out the person behind the scenes. Also, young madam, you can call me Xiao Pang in the future." Han Yushi. Chapter 526. "Auntie Zhao, let me help you inside to rest for a while. You must be tired from running here so early in the morning." After the crowd dispersed, Han Yushi asked someone to clean up the door and looked at old lady Zhao. Today's conflict was the first time in Han Yushi's life that she had encountered such a big scene. In fact, she had always been extremely nervous in her heart. In the end, she was able to resolve this matter perfectly. In addition to her adaptability and extraordinary performance, the righteous old Madame Zhao also played a role in it. There weren't many of those martyrs' widows who had bad intentions. They were just at a loss after encountering a great tragedy in their lives, and were then used by a villain. At this time, with old Lady Zhao as a clear example, it was easy to awaken the original kindness in their hearts. I won't sit. Fortunately, I heard the news in time today and didn't let Xianqing make a big mistake. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the face to see Si Wei after a few years." Old Lady Zhao leaned on her walking stick and said with some heartache. At this time, she had returned from a messenger of justice to her original identity, a mother who had just lost her son. "Mother, don't say that, it's all my fault. You will definitely be healthy and live a long life." Xia Wanqing held old Lady Zhao's hand and cried. Han Yushi also said softly, "Auntie Zhao, Sister Xianqing was just carelessly used by a villain. Don't blame her, and don't blame yourself. I still have to thank you for coming all the way here to help today. Sigh. This is what I should do. It's not much help." Old Lady Zhao shook her head and said, Mrs. Li, I stayed because I have something to tell you. Don't think I'm long-winded. Of course not. Auntie, if you have something to say, just say it. This junior is all ears. Han Yushi stroked the hair in front of her forehead and said with a smile. Old Lady Zhao looked to the east. Her gaze was slightly bleak. She sighed and said, although you didn't tell me clearly, I guessed that my son had already been buried in the snake's stomach and not even his bones were left. As for the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect, I wish I could personally go to their sect and perish together with them. As for that 7-headed giant snake, I dream of eating its flesh and drinking its blood even in my dreams. Everyone says that Lord Zhu values friendship. This time, the Imperial Court has sent a large number of troops to attack Snake Spirit Mountain. Based on Lord Zhu's usual behavior, he will definitely avenge my son and the soldiers who died. However, I really don't want to let more good men follow in my son's footsteps because of revenge. It's enough for this old woman to have to see her own child die before her own. I hope that Lord Zhu won't let more people die because of revenge. If that's the case, even if we get our revenge, I won't be able to feel at ease for the rest of my life. What kind of mother was she to be able to say such deep and moving words? Only those who truly had great love and kindness in their hearts would be able to consider things so thoroughly. This was not a small love for a family, but a great love for the whole world. When Han Yushi heard this, her heart was filled with mixed feelings. Her eyes were slightly moist. Taking a deep breath, Han Yushi held back the tears that were about to burst out of her eyes and comforted her. Auntie Zhao, you don't have to worry too much. My husband has already thought about what you just said. Right now, he is thinking of a way to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect with the smallest price to avenge Big Brother Zhao and the soldiers who died. You just have to wait at home with peace of mind. Old Madame Zhao nodded her head in relief and said, Good, good. I was thinking too much. It's good that Lord Zhu can think of this. Madame Li, this old woman will take her leave first. Auntie Zhao, take care. Sister Wanqing, you should come over often in the future. Okay. Thank you, Madame Zhu. Yushi, you handled today's matter very well. Not only did you not let those who wanted to smear Xian Er's reputation succeed, but you also let Xian Er's reputation among the common people rise to a higher level. Xian Er is really lucky to have married you. After the farce ended, Han Yushi was about to return to her room to tell her parents-in-law that she was safe. Who knew that the old couple had been hiding behind the door and secretly observing? Seeing Han Yushi enter the courtyard, Madame Li held her hand and said with a smile, Mother, you're too kind. Actually, I was also very nervous just now. Han Yushi was happy in her heart, but she said modestly, Hee. No matter what, this is the best result. Facts have proven that Xian Er can't leave you. Ha ha. Li Jingma stroked his beard with relief and laughed. Unlike Madame Li, Li Jingma had been in the business world for decades and had seen countless people. He just saw a trace of shrewdness and experience in Han Yushi's way of handling things. She could handle this kind of situation so well for the first time. He felt that in the future, he could completely be a shopkeeper with his wife because his son and daughter-in-law, one outside the family and one inside the family, could take charge of things independently. Hee. Young madam looks so awe-inspiring just now. Jiang Tsuehua is such an unruly shrew. Didn't she have to obediently beg for mercy when she saw young madam? Xiao He came over to join in the fun with a smile. Ha ha ha. The whole family couldn't help but laugh heartily. While they were happy, the mysterious man in the alley opposite the Li residence had a constipated expression. Bastard! Trash! This Jiang Tsuehua is really a stupid woman. She could even fail in such a good situation. Why would I find such a trash? The mysterious man kicked over a jar placed by someone by the roadside and cursed loudly. After venting for a long time, his mood finally calmed down a little. He muttered, Forget it. Since this plan didn't work, I can only wait until the day after tomorrow to negotiate with the other families. Fortunately, that Jiang Tsuehua doesn't know my true identity. Otherwise, wouldn't I have gone for wool and come home shorn this time? What bad luck! After saying that, he flicked his sleeves and left. Sigh. Which heartless bastard, who gave birth to a son without eyes, kicked over the pot that I had just washed? Come out if you have the guts. See if I don't crush you to death. As soon as the mysterious man left, a fat woman with a waist of 3 feet came out from the side courtyard. When she saw the jar that had been knocked over on the ground, she was instantly furious and raised her voice to curse loudly. The mysterious man, who had turned into another alley, heard the faint curses coming from behind him. He couldn't help but frown and say, "Which family's stupid woman is actually so shrewish? She's simply ruining the refined culture. However, she shouldn't be scolding me." The mysterious man felt good about himself and shook his head and continued to walk forward. Chapter 527. Your Imperial Highness, why have you come? Quickly, take a seat. Not long after the farce ended, Han Yushi heard a servant report that Princess Changle had arrived. She promptly went out to welcome her. As for Li Jingma and Madame Li, the old couple knew that their son had some friendship with the princes and princesses. Since Changle had come to the Li residence, she was definitely not looking for them. As a result, they returned to the east courtyard. "Big Sister Yushi, are you alright? Changle heard that someone was causing trouble at your residence. However, Imperial Father and Big Brother Crown Prince are still attending morning court, so I came over myself." After not seeing her for a month, Changle's complexion was much better than before. At this moment, she walked over and spoke with concern. Seeing that the concern on Changle's face was genuine, Han Yushi couldn't help but feel warmth in her heart. Smiling slightly, she replied, I'm fine. Those people have already dispersed. Many thanks for your Imperial Highness concern. It's good that you're fine. Also, Big Sister Yushi, how many times have I told you? You can just call me Changle. Don't call me your Imperial Highness all the time. That's too estranged. That's right, where's Big Brother Shaoxian? After such a big incident, how come I don't see him? Changle could not help but ask as she sat on the Li residence's special wooden armchair and looked around. She was still considered a half-grown child. Sitting on this large and wide chair meant for adults, her legs were a little short, and her toes could barely touch the floor. Her petite appearance made her look exceptionally cute. Han Yushi was startled. She replied, "My husband wasn't at home yesterday. Right now, he should be at the workshop. He said that he wanted to make something to deal with the 7 cultivators of true virtue." Wow. Then it seems that the 7 cultivators of true virtue is going to be out of luck this time. Every time Big Brother Shaoxian says that he wants to make something, he always makes something that none of us can imagine. Changle laughed happily. Afterwards, she blinked her large, beautiful eyes and asked, "Big Sister Yushi, did Big Brother Shaoxian say when he would finish? When the time comes, Changle wants to see what it is." Han Yushi smiled and replied, "He didn't say when. He only said that he should be able to make it within 3 days. Changle, if you want to know, you can ask him when he returns." Oh. Changle nodded rather regretfully, and then she said, "Then Big Sister Yushi, quickly tell Changle how those people were sent away." Sister Yushi, are you okay?" At this moment, a clear female voice came from outside. The 2 people in the house looked out and saw a girl in a red dress with delicate features and mischievous eyes. It was Li Yu, the girl who sold her body to Tang daily and worked to pay off her debts. "Is Little Fishy here?" During the wedding, Little Fishy had also attended the wedding. Li Zixuan had even told Han Yushi about the interesting things that happened when they first met Li Yu. Therefore, Han Yushi definitely knew Li Yu. "Sister Yushi, you're fine." That's great. When I came out to buy buns this morning, I heard that a group of peasant women came here to cause trouble. I was so scared that I didn't even eat my buns and ran over. Luckily, nothing happened. Otherwise, boss. Big sister Yushi, this is? Little Fishy skipped over. Pulling on Han Yushi and sizing her up, she chattered incessantly. Only then did she notice Changle at the side. She couldn't help but stare blankly and ask, Little Fishy, this is Princess Changle. Han Yushi reacted and promptly introduced, Changle, this is Liu. We all call her Little Fishy. She can be considered half a student of my husband's. Liu pays respects to your highness the princess. Little Fishy was startled. She didn't expect that the little girl, who was about the same age as her, was actually a princess. She promptly stepped forward and paid her respects. However, Changle did not immediately ask Liu to dispense with the formalities. Her eyes stared unblinkingly at Liu's face, lost in thought. Actually, ever since Liu had entered the room, Changle's eyes had never left Liu's face. Don't misunderstand. Our Princess Changle is definitely not a lesbian. Cough cough. Changle? After waiting for a long time and seeing no reaction from Changle, not only did Liu feel that something was wrong, but Han Yushi also saw that something was wrong. She couldn't help but cough dryly and remind Changle. Oh. Changle finally awoke from her reverie. Somewhat flustered, she said, Dispense with the formalities, dispense with the formalities. Since you are Big Brother Xiaoshuan student, there is no need to be overly courteous. Speaking of which, you and Big Brother Qinke can be considered half of the same school. Hee. Since your highness says so, then I won't be courteous. Liu had an easygoing personality. Hearing Changle's words, she promptly straightened her body. Giggling, she said, Princess, the Qinke you spoke of, is it Prince Li Tai of Wei? I have seen him before. He is a very formidable person. Changle asked curiously, Oh? You have seen Big Brother Qinke? Little Fishy proudly replied, Hee. Of course. Speaking of which, among the three of you, I have seen the Crown Prince and Prince Wei at the workshop previously, but I have not seen you. When Changle heard that, a trace of pitifulness flashed across her eyes. She said, Since you are often at the workshop, then it is not strange that you have seen Big Brother Qinke and Big Brother Crown Prince. It is just that as a princess, it is not as convenient for me to leave the palace as it is for them. That is why you have not seen me. Little Fishy was an exquisite person. How could she not hear the sadness in her words? She quickly stopped smiling and said regretfully, Oh, that is true. But you are the princess of Tang Empire, the apple of His Majesty's eye. Who knows how many people envy you? Envy? Changle muttered to herself. Then, she shook her head and forced a smile. Let's not talk about this. Little Fishy, you just said that Big Brother Qinke is a formidable person. How is he formidable? Other than reading her sister's novels, Changle really couldn't think of how her brother was formidable. Well, Little Fishy rubbed her chin and said with a smile, Prince Wei is a prince, but he is still diligent and eager to learn. I heard that his mathematics results are one of the best in the school of mathematics. He is comparable to Meng Wenhao. Oh, Meng Wenhao is a good brother of mine. He is always the first in the school of mathematics. When Changle saw Liu's face full of vigor when she said that Meng Wenhao was her good brother, she couldn't help but feel envious. She nodded in disappointment and said, Oh, so that is the case. But he is not formidable. Changle heard from my father that Big Brother Qinke has been extremely intelligent since he was young. It is reasonable that he can do this. When Little Fishy heard that, her eyes widened. She said unhappily, How is this not formidable? Prince Wei is from a better family than us, but he is more hard-working than us ordinary people. This is very formidable. Chapter 528. Liu had been in Datong Daily's editorial department for a long time, and her words were more humorous than before. Changle, who had been in the palace for a long time, was amused and laughed. "Little Fishy, what you said is really interesting. I must tell Brother Chinke about this, and tell him not to work so hard." Little Fishy said happily, "Hee. Princess, you should tell Prince Wei about this. Otherwise, ordinary people like us will feel very pressured when we see him working so hard despite his good background." Changle pursed her lips and smiled. She shook her head and didn't deny it. However, she was secretly surprised because she had only spoken a few words with Li Yu, and she felt that some of the depression in her heart had been resolved. This was really a person who could bring joy to the people around her. "Little Fishy, what do you do at the workshop?" Changle was suddenly very curious about this little girl who was the same age as her. "Me. I write news for Tang daily in the workshop." Little Fishy counted with her fingers and said embarrassedly, "Unlike you or Prince Wei, my parents passed away early, and I have to earn money to support myself." Changle was stunned. She didn't expect this weird and lively little girl in front of her to have such an unfortunate experience. She quickly apologized. "Little Fishy, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose." Little Fishy waved her hand and interrupted her. "Hee. Princess, you don't have to apologize. It's actually nothing. Now, other than thinking about my parents occasionally, I'm living quite well. Of course, it's all thanks to my boss for taking me in back then." "Boss?" Changle was puzzled. "I heard you mention your boss just now. Who is this boss?" "My boss is Li Zixuan. Isn't the Tang Daily editorial department where I'm working now all his?" Li Yu had never treated herself as an outsider. When she heard Changle's question, she directly called Li Zixuan by his name and answered. Changle was enlightened. She said in surprise, "So it's Brother Xiaoxian." Sigh. "Little Fishy, I seem to remember now. I saw several news articles on Tang Daily, and the name on them was Little Fishy. Is it really you?" Originally, she only came to see Han Yushi, but she met a princess. Moreover, this princess was her own reader. Li Yu shouted excitedly, "Yes, yes, yes, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me. Princess, do you also read Tang Daily?" Changle smiled and said, "Look. Every day. My father is watching too." "Wow. That's great. Doesn't that mean I'm very famous?" When Little Fishy heard that even Li Er read Tang Daily, she couldn't help but jump up in joy. She quickly asked, "Then, Princess, has His Majesty ever mentioned me?" "I didn't," Changle said with an awkward expression. "Ah?" Little Fishy suddenly turned into a dumbfounded fish. "Little Fishy, you really dare to think. His Majesty is busy every day. Even if he saw the news you wrote, he wouldn't be so free to remember your name." Han Yushi called for a servant to come in and refill the tea, but she was amused by Little Fishy's confused expression. She couldn't help but say, "Oh." Little Fishy pouted gloomily. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of the servant girl pouring tea. She smiled mischievously and said, "Sister Yushi, I don't want to drink tea. Can you change it to iced tea and tenderness? It's best to use your family's patterned glazed cup." The corner of Han Yushi's mouth couldn't help but twitch. How could there be such a guest? She wanted to say that the tea was for Changle, not for her. But she felt that it would be too hurtful to say this. She could only nod and say, "Okay. I'll get someone to change it for you." "Changle, do you want to change it?" Changle hesitated for a moment, and then for some reason she actually said, "I'll change it too. Thank you, Sister Yushi." "It's okay." Han Yushi chuckled, and then ordered someone to change the tea to tenderness. "Hee. Great minds think alike. How can this tea taste better than tenderness?" Li Yu said with a grin. Changle felt that she was a little rude when she said that. But now that she heard Li Yu's shameless words, she suddenly felt that what she said just now was nothing. Han Yushi tapped Little Fishy's forehead dotingly and said, You only dare to talk nonsense here." "Hee. Isn't that because Sister Yushi and the boss are kind? Little Fishy was very perceptive and flattered her. In a short while, the servants brought over the tenderness and glazed cups. When the pink wine flowed into the wave-patterned glazed cups, Changle finally understood why Li Yu specially emphasized that the wine had to be filled with patterned glazed cup. The sparkling pink wine and wine cup in front of her was simply a work of art given by the heavens. It was too beautiful. How is it? Isn't it beautiful? Li Yu came over and asked proudly. Then, without waiting for Changle to answer, she sighed and said, "You can only enjoy this at the boss's place. Currently, Chitsu Pavilion doesn't have such patterned glazed cups." Changle nodded with a dazed expression. Li Yu smiled and said, "Sister Yushi is really lucky to be married to the boss. Not only does the boss treat people well, but you can also often enjoy things that you can't elsewhere. Now, all the women in Chang'an City are envious of you." Han Yushi felt sweet in her heart, but she scolded, "Go away? Little girl, how old are you? Do you know what is lucky and what is not?" "Oh, why don't I know? As a reporter for Tang Daily, I know the topics and opinions of the people in Chang'an City like the back of my hand." It was the first time Changle heard the term reporter. She felt that it was a novelty, so she asked, "Little Fishy, what is a reporter? And how did you learn to write the news?" Han Yushi covered her mouth and laughed. Reporters write the news based on the culture of the people. As for how she learned to write the news, it started when she first arrived in Chang'an. Little Fishy jumped and said, "Ah, Sister Yushi, don't say it, it's so ugly." Changle became more and more curious and asked, "Sister Yushi, what happened at that time?" At that time, when she just arrived in Chang'an, she met a silly big guy who wanted to rob her. It was said that 3 women made a scene. The 3 of them chatted until it was close to noon. It was the palace maid that Changle brought over who reminded her. Otherwise, Changle would have forgotten the time. When they parted, Changle still wanted to continue. She really looked forward to Little Fishy's free and surprising life. Of course, the happiness that Little Fishy had from inside out also left a deep impression on her. "Little Fishy, have we met before?" After sitting in the pink, "Don't touch me," that Li Zixuan had specially customized, Changle finally asked the curiosity in her heart. Little Fishy said blankly, "Ah, no? Princess, why do you ask?" Changle shook her head and said, "It's nothing, I just feel that you are very familiar." Forget it. Then let's part here. I will find you again when I leave the palace." "Okay. You are always welcome." Changle smiled and put down the curtain. The carriage gradually drove out of Yongla Lane and disappeared from Han Yushi and Little Fishy's sight. Chapter 529. Ah, Sister Yushi. I almost forgot about the important matter. I came here today not only to see you, but also to interview you. After bidding farewell to Changle reluctantly, Little Fishy patted her head and suddenly shouted. Han Yushi frowned and asked in puzzlement, "Interview? Interview what?" "Interview you. Sister Yushi, you alone made so many troublemaking women return empty-handed today. How amazing are you? I've even thought of the title for you. Yes, it's called The Widow of a Meritorious Official Making Trouble, the county man's wife retreating with wisdom. How is it, Sister Yushi?" At this point, Little Fishy clapped her hands excitedly. She looked at Han Yushi eagerly, hoping to get approval from the other party. Han Yushi rolled her eyes in annoyance and said, "Nothing much. I'm a woman. How can I show my face in Tang Daily? Besides, although there are many people here today, it's far from 1,000 people." Hearing that, Little Fishy hurriedly came over and grabbed Han Yushi's arm. She said, Sister Yushi, what's wrong with women? Can't women show their faces in public? I think the boss definitely doesn't think like you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taught me how to write news back then. In the end, he even arranged for me to work in the editorial department. I think the boss won't care about these things. There's more. What I said just now was just the headline of the news. The headline. Naturally, it has to be exaggerated. That's what the boss taught me back then. Besides, when the people who read the newspaper see the content, who will care whether it's 1,000 people or 100 people? Han Yushi pulled her arm out and said in amusement, "Little fishy, you're not old, but you're full of fallacies. Also, you keep talking about the boss. If Xiao Xian knows that someone actually admires him so much, he will be overjoyed." Little fishy raised her chin and said proudly, "Of course. I'm going to inherit the boss's mantle." Sigh. Sister Yushi, don't interrupt. Do you agree or not? Think about it. Today, those commoners came to make trouble for no reason. There must be someone behind them. If there is a first time, there will be a second time. If I write about it on the news tomorrow, no one will be willing to do such things. It will also reduce a lot of trouble for you and the boss, right? It had to be said that this little girl was quite good at bewitching people. When Han Yushi heard this, her heart palpitated. She hesitated and said, "Okay. However, those women were only confused for a moment after experiencing the pain of losing their husbands. Their minds were bewitched by despicable people. They don't have any bad intentions. Little you, when you write the news, don't be too harsh with your words. They are also a group of pitiful people. It's not good to hurt their hearts. Hee. Good. This month's bonus was settled again. Ha. Hearing this, little fishy got carried away and said something that she shouldn't have said. Han Yushi widened her eyes and reached out to pinch Li Yu's beautiful face. She said angrily, "Okay? That's your real goal, isn't it? Little girl, you're even scheming against me. Watch how I'll deal with you." Big Sister Yushi, it's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Ouch. Let go of me first. I'm just trying to earn more money to pay off the debt I owed to my boss. Heroine, please spare my life. This little sister was wrong. What? Such a thing actually happened? Why didn't you report to us earlier? Eastern Palace, Chengqian Hall. Li Chengqian pointed at an old eunuch at the bottom of the stairs and said angrily, "Your Imperial Highness, please calm down. Previously, you were still in mourning court. That's why I had eunuch and wait here for you to return. If you want to blame someone, blame Yen or." An exceptionally beautiful palace maid came over and bowed. Sigh. Forget it. Then what was the final result? Li Chengqian waved his hand and said helplessly, "Replying to your Imperial Highness, it was daunting but not dangerous. When this old servant returned, that group of wicked women had already been persuaded to leave by the wife of County Magistrate Li. You need not worry. Moreover, it is said that Princess Changle has already paid a visit." Madame Li was not offended. The old eunuch wiped his sweat and promptly replied. Li Chengqian breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Phew, that's good. Speaking of which, little sister Changle really cares about the matters of little Xian's family. Ha. How about this? Us will also pay a visit to little Xian's family." Yen stammered for a long time before stammering, "Your Imperial Highness. I'm afraid that your Imperial Highness's actions are inappropriate." Li Chengqian frowned and said unhappily, "What's inappropriate? Your Imperial Highness may not know, but County Magistrate Li has not been at home these past few days. Right now, only his wife is in charge of the Li estate. If your Imperial Highness were to go now, it would be difficult to guarantee that there won't be vile people gossiping behind your back." Li Chengqian was furious. "Scoundrel! Acting alone is righteous and sitting upright. Why should I fear others gossiping?" Yen shrunk her neck and persisted, "Your Imperial Highness may not fear these things, but there are some things that you should pay attention to. This servant is doing this for your own good." Li Chengqian was immediately depressed. He also knew that Yen words were reasonable. As the Crown Prince, He knew this better than anyone else. After cursing these annoying etiquette twice in his heart, Li Chengqian finally waved his hand and said, "All right. That's fine. Yen go to the storeroom and prepare some gifts. Go to little Xian's family on my behalf." "Yes, Your Imperial Highness." Yen hurriedly accepted the order as if she had been granted amnesty. In the hall, Li Chengqian thought for a while and then asked, "Yen just said that little Xian hasn't been at home these past few days. Did he go to Snake Spirit Mountain again?" The old eunuch bowed and replied, "Your Imperial Highness, Lord Zhu isn't in the army. It's said that he's in the workshop of the Strange Taste Pavilion." "Workshop?" Li Chengqian was puzzled. Imperial Father sent 6,000 soldiers to surround Snake Spirit Mountain 2 days ago. At that time, little Xian said that he had a way to deal with the 7 cultivators sect alone. "I thought he was in the army. Why is he in the workshop?" This old servant doesn't know." Li Chengqian shook his head and said, "It's fine. Fortunately, I have nothing to do in the afternoon. I'll go to the workshop to see what little Xian is up to." Speaking of this, he actually had to thank Li Zixuan. Ever since Li Tai became addicted to mathematics, he rarely paid attention to the imperial palace. Now that the little fatty had left Chang'an City to experience life, at the Cloud Mountain construction site, Li Chengqian didn't have to worry about competing with Li Tai for favor anymore. Now, he only needed to listen to the morning court and deal with the government affairs that Li Pei sent him. He could be considered to be free and unfettered. "Yes, this old servant will arrange a carriage for your Imperial Highness." Chapter 530. Oh, Li Zixuan married a good wife. She knows when to advance and retreat, uses both the carrot and the stick, and handles it with ease. This girl actually turned a very unfavorable situation for Li Zixuan around. Amazing! Amazing! Ha! Li Jing Palace Li Er, who was freeloading at Empress Jiangxuan's place, had obviously heard about the farce in front of the Li residence today. Empress Jiangxun smiled and said, "Ha ha! Who said it wasn't?" Previously, when Xiao Xian married Han Yushi, many people felt that their family background was not right. Although there was news that Han Yushi was Han Qinhu's great-granddaughter and Du Daoling's granddaughter, many people still felt that this girl was not worthy of Xiao Xian. Now, it seems that this girl is better than many young ladies from rich families. The situation that Zhang Sun said was not groundless because whether it was Han Qinhu or Du Daoling, they were now just fleeting clouds. They only represented the glory of the past and could not let Han Yushi escape the fact that she was born a peasant girl. A dignified county man who founded the country married a peasant girl. In this era where status and family background were valued, it was inevitable that people would gossip. Previously, Li Zixuan held a grand wedding for Han Yushi that caused a sensation in Chang'an, as well as his meticulous care for Han Yushi after marriage, made Han Yushi feel happy and sweet at the same time. She also felt immense pressure. Therefore, she did not slack off after marriage, and kept learning from Mrs. Li. She just wanted to become a woman worthy of Li Zixuan's love. That was all. Sometimes, Li Zixuan could not help but feel embarrassed when he saw her diligence. Of course, there was a reward for effort. If it had been a few months ago, Han Yushi definitely would not have been able to handle this sudden incident on the spot. I didn't expect Li Zixuan, this brat, to be so good at judging people. But Zhao Siwei's mother is also very important. She deserves a reward. Li Er saw things very accurately and got to the crux of the matter in one sentence. However, the first half of his sentence was wrong. When Li Zixuan married his wife back then, he did not consider whether the girl was of equal status or whether she was capable or not. He only pursued congenial feelings. Indeed, if it wasn't for that old lady's righteousness, that girl from the Han family would have to go through a lot of trouble. But Xiao Xian is too generous. He took out more than 100,000 strings of cash, just like that. Did he tell your majesty before? Empress Zhongsun asked with a frown. Li Er nodded his head and recalled. He did mention it. Yesterday, this brat asked someone to hand over a booklet. The booklet mentioned that he wanted to pay for the compensation to the families of the 215 soldiers, but we have not approved it yet. But this kid definitely didn't expect that those people would take the initiative to ask for money before he even gave them the money, right? Li Zixuan was right. This was something that Li Zixuan had not expected. If he had been present today, he definitely would not have mentioned the 100,000 strings of cash. As someone who had transmigrated from modern society, he hated things like moral kidnapping the most, because strictly speaking, he didn't owe those people money at all. If he gave it, it was out of sympathy. If he didn't give it, it was only right. No one could force him to give money that he shouldn't have. Empress Zhongsun thought for a while and suddenly said, Your Majesty, it is said that the reason why these women went to the Li residence to cause trouble was mainly because they were instigated by someone called Jiang Tsuyu. I feel that this person's intentions are definitely not simple. Of course it's not simple. I'm afraid that some people don't like that brat recently. How dare you do such a thing right under my nose? How dare you? Li Er could obviously see this kind of problem that could be figured out with his butt. He almost instantly saw through the intentions of the person behind the scenes and couldn't help but snort coldly. What? I've only been away for a few days and so many big things have happened in Chang'an? Duke Lu's residence. Qing Chumo grabbed the food in his bowl and shouted with his cheeks puffed up. In the past few days, this guy had gone hunting with Li Huairan, Yuqi Baolin, and a bunch of other second-generation generals in Zhongnan Mountain. He had just returned near noon today. During lunch, this guy heard Qing Yaojin talk about what had happened in the past 2 days and immediately exploded. Eat, eat, eat. What are you shouting for? Qing Yaojin knocked on the bowl and said angrily. Qing Chumo slammed the bowl and chopsticks on the table and said unhappily, No, Dad, how can I eat? My brother is being bullied, and my brother's wife is being harassed. Tell me, how can I still eat? Eat, Madam Qing glared at this bastard son and said faintly, but the fierce look on her face disappeared in a flash. Qing Chumo immediately withered. He looked at his father, but Qing Yaojin only cared about eating and didn't care about him at all. He had no choice but to sit down again. But at this moment, looking at the food in front of him, he no longer had any appetite. No. After a few seconds, Qing Chumo stood up again. He stretched his neck and said, Dad, Mom, I have to go to Snake Spirit Mountain to take a look. Also, Butler Liang, bring some gifts in the afternoon and visit Uncle Li and Aunt Li. After that, he didn't wait for Madame Cheng and Madame Cheng to say anything and directly went out. Hey. Wait. Finish eating before you leave. Madame Cheng reached out to stop him but couldn't. She could only roll her eyes at Qing Yaojin and complain, Look at the good son you taught. He's as impatient as you all day. Chuliang, don't learn from your brother. Oh. Qing Chuliang, who was at the side, grunted sullenly. Qing Yaojin was unhappy. He glared and said, So what if he's like me? If my son doesn't look like me, does he have to look like old Wang next door? What the F***ck is this? When Madame Cheng heard that, she angrily threw the chopsticks in her hand at him and said, What nonsense are you saying? How can you say such things so carelessly? Qing Yaojin tilted his head to avoid the hidden weapon and laughed dryly. He knew that he was in the wrong and didn't dare to quibble. He buried his head and continued to eat. Cough, cough. Madam, what about the Li residence? Butler Liang wiped the sweat on his forehead and said hesitantly. Obviously, he knew who was in charge at this moment, so he directly asked Madame Cheng instead of Qing Yaojin. You don't have to go. I'll go personally in the afternoon. Madame Cheng thought for a while and said lightly. Putting everything else aside, Her relationship with Li Zixuan's mother was quite good. Yes, madam. Butler Liang heaved a sigh of relief and cupped his hands. Chapter 531. Afternoon. The Li residence was very lively. Carriages came one after another. There were carriages from the Qing residence, the Qin residence, the Yuqi residence, the Niu residence, and the Li residence. What shocked the passers-by the most was that someone from the East Palace also came. Although it was only a palace maid, the meaning behind it was very shocking. This was the social network Li Zixuan operated. Today, he was no longer the young boy who could only rely on his parents when he first arrived in Chang'an. Now, whoever wanted to touch him would have to consider whether they could afford to offend the hidden forces behind him. Today, the matriarchs of both the Qin and Qing manors had personally come. This caused everyone to be secretly shocked. Those who participated in the disturbance in the morning couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble. On one hand, they regretted listening to the rumors and causing trouble, but on the other hand, they were glad that they declined the compensation from the Li family. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the face to see anyone in the future. Baolin, are you going or not? Yes. Yes. Ha ha. Good. Good brother. This bullshit 7 cultivators of true virtue bullied little Xian. Let's go and kill them all. Yes, yes. Kill. Kill them all. Obviously, Tring Chumo didn't forget to find a companion when he went out to cause trouble. This guy came to Bujing Fang and tricked Yuqi Baolin. Bah! Kill your head. Ching Chumo, you stinking brat, you came to kidnap my family's Baolin again. This time, when we went to Mount Zhongnan, you all came back fine. Why did my family's Baolin have a few marks on his face? At this time, Yuqi Jingda came out of nowhere and scolded Ching Chumo. After scolding, he strode forward and wanted to catch Ching Chumo. As the saying goes, if you can't beat the old, what's wrong with bullying the young? What's more, this little brat Ching Chumo is as cheap as his father. He really needs to be taught a lesson. Hey, Baolin, run. Ching Chumo was as slippery as a loach. How could he let Yuqi Jingda catch him? When Yuqi Jingda was still 3 feet away, Ching Chumo could already tell that something was wrong and scampered off. However, he didn't forget the mission he came here for today. As he ran, he yelled at the back. Ah! Oh oh oh! Wait for me, ugly bull! Yuqi Baolin hurriedly followed after him. Sigh. Baolin, don't go. Even little Xian can't beat you. What can you do there? Yuqi Jingda was so anxious that he stomped his feet. In the end, the two of them ran further and further away, and very soon, their figures disappeared. The only thing left in the air was Ching Chumo shouting, Uncle Yuqi! Don't worry, we'll be back soon. Yuqi Jingda almost vomited blood. He yelled at the direction Ching Chumo disappeared. Ching Chumo, you better watch yourself. If Baolin gets hurt, I'll kill my way to your Qing family. After yelling, Yuqi Jingda sighed softly, somewhat distressed. Sigh. How did I give birth to such a stupid son? On the other side, Li Chengqian was a man of his word. After lunch, he took a car to the workshop. Nowadays, sedan chairs were no longer popular among some of the rich families in Chang'an City. That thing was swaying and slow, and it was also very stuffy. How could it compare to the speed, coolness, and comfort of the strange interest pavilions, Don't Touch Me? Although the production of Don't Touch Me was still very low, and the market was also very small, the rich had their own solutions. There was always a way. If 1,000 strings of cash couldn't buy it, then 2,000 strings of cash. If 2,000 strings of cash didn't work, then 3,000 strings of cash. As long as you had money, you wouldn't have to worry about not being able to buy a car. The black market, or rather, the scalper gang, existed in any era. Once he reached the entrance of the workshop, Li Chengqian called over a Wu Ho who was guarding the workshop and asked, Where is Li Zixuan? When Li Zixuan assigned Pang Feiji's team of Wu Ho to Li Zixuan as his personal guards, The right Marquis household sent another team of Wu Ho to be responsible for the safety of the Strange Interest Pavilion workshop and the two sides of the Strange Interest culture. Replying to Your Highness, Lord Ju. Lord Ju is at the Drunken Wind Pavilion. That Wu Ho had a difficult expression as he stammered out a reply. All right. I understand, you can leave. Li Chengqian didn't notice the strange expression on that Wu Ho's face. After saying that, he walked in by himself. He had been to the Drunken Wind Pavilion before, so he didn't need anyone to lead the way. Sighs, that Wu Ho stretched out his hand wanting to say something, but in the end, he didn't dare to say anything. I want to see what you're doing hiding in the workshop during this big battle. Looking at the Drunken Wind Pavilion, not far away, Li Chengqian thought curiously. Greetings, Your Highness. Li Chengqian had been to the workshop more than once. Seeing his arrival, the two workshop servants at the entrance of the Drunken Wind Pavilion hurriedly bowed and greeted him. Dispense with the formalities. Is Li Zixuan inside? Li Chengqian didn't expect that there would be two gatekeepers here, so he asked in passing. Your Highness, Lord Ju is inside. Song Xiaoxi cupped his fists and replied. That's good. Li Chengqian nodded in satisfaction and was about to walk in. Your Highness, please wait. Song Xiaoxi gritted his teeth and hurriedly flashed in front of Li Chengqian. He stopped him and said, Forgive me, Your Highness, but you can't go in. Lord Ju had instructed me earlier that no one is allowed to enter this courtyard for the next 3 days. Lord Ju's meals can only be delivered to the door for these 2 days. Li Chengqian was a little displeased. Even I can't go in? Plop. Song Xiaoxi dragged his other companion and knelt on the ground. He said, I don't dare to stop Your Highness, but I don't dare to disobey Lord Ju's orders either. Your Highness, if you insist on going in, you can step on my body to go in. With that, he hit his head on the ground and prostrated himself on the ground. Li Chengqian said angrily, Bastard! Are you threatening me? At the end of the day, this child was also a person above everyone else. He could be a little patient with his friends, but not with people like Song Xiaoxi who had nothing to do with him. Your Highness, please forgive me. I definitely didn't mean that. Song Xiaoxi hurriedly kowtowed. Li Chengqian said indignantly, Whether you mean it or not, I still want to go in and take a look. With that, he planned to go around the person in front of him and go in directly. Boom! At that moment, a loud bang suddenly exploded in the Drunken Wind Pavilion. Li Chengqian could feel a huge wave of heat coming from outside the courtyard, and he could even feel the ground trembling. Just as Li Chengqian was about to shout, "The Earth Dragon is here," loud laughter came from inside. Waha! I did it! I finally did it! Li Chengqian recognized the identity of that voice and seemed to understand something. He wiped his sweat and said glumly, "All right, as you wish. I won't go in any more." With that, he ran off as if there was oil on the soles of his feet. This place is really too dangerous. Li Chengqian sighed in his heart. Chapter 532. Chonyo Baolin? At the foot of Snake Spirit Mountain. As usual, Niu Jindao was patrolling the camp with his guards. Suddenly, he heard a commotion outside the gate of the camp. He couldn't help but frown. He had been in the army for many years, and he had always been strict with his troops. He had never seen a situation where he had to obey military discipline. With anger in his heart, Niu Jindao arrived at the gate of the camp and saw Qing Chumo arguing with the guards, as well as Yuqi Baolin behind Qing Chumo. "Uncle Niu, it's me. Hurry up and tell this bastard to let us in." When Qing Chumo saw Niu Jindao, he quickly waved his hands excitedly. "This is the military camp. Chonyo, what are you doing here?" Niu Jindao's expression didn't improve, and he was still very serious. "Ahem. Uncle Niu, that 7 cultivators sect bullied Xiaoxian. As his brothers, of course we're here to help him vent his anger. Don't worry, we're here to help, not to cause trouble. Ching Chumo had no choice but to suck up to Nyo Nyo. Nyo Jinda secretly rolled his eyes and asked, "Do Jijia and Jingda know that you're here?" Ching Chumo and Yuchi Jingda replied in unison, we know, we know." Seeing that the two of them were solemn and didn't look like they were lying, Nyo Jinda could only believe them. He waved his hand and motioned for the guards to let them in. Then, he said, "Come in. Someone will arrange a tent for you later, but this old man will say the ugly words first. The army has its own rules. Don't break the rules and make things difficult for this old man." Ching Chumo nodded repeatedly and said, we know, we know. Don't worry, Uncle Nyo. We definitely won't cause trouble for you." Yes, yes, yes. We're here to help Xiaoxian get revenge, not to cause trouble." Yuchi Baolin scratched his head and chuckled. Nyo Jinda was too lazy to talk nonsense. He waved his hand and continued patrolling the camp. F***CK. So Xiaoxian isn't in the camp. In the end, we came here for nothing. After successfully sneaking into the camp, Ching Chumo hooked up with a few soldiers of the right Wuwei. After a few words, he figured out the current situation in the camp. When he realized that Li Zixuan wasn't in the camp, he couldn't help but grumble. At that time, Li Zixuan had boasted that he would be able to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue in 3 days, and that he only needed the imperial court to send an army to surround the Serpent Spirit Mountain and not let the people or beasts inside escape. Therefore, everyone subconsciously thought that he would be preparing for the attack in the barrack. Therefore, Li Chengqian, Ching Chumo, and the others all fell into this misconception. Then Brother Chonyo, are we still going to stay here?" Yuchi Baolin asked. Ching Chumo rubbed his chin. After thinking for a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, "Wait, 2 days have passed. I don't believe that Xiaoxian would go back on his words. Let's see how our good brother will challenge an entire sect by himself tomorrow. The two of us accidentally missed the big battle a few days ago. This time, we can't miss it no matter what. Yes, we can't miss it this time. I also believe that Xiaoxian can do it." Yuchi Baolin waved his fist and said firmly, "Newspaper for sale. Newspaper for sale." Today's headline of the newly published Tang Daily. Hero's widow makes trouble, county man's wife retreats with wisdom. 5 copper coins for a copy. Early the next morning, the sound of newspaper sellers in the streets of Chang woke up the world's largest city. With the development of Tang Daily today, it was no longer as low level as before, where it had to rely on paperboys to sell newspapers. Now, at the intersection of every street in Chang, there was basically a kiosk. Firstly, it was convenient for people to buy newspapers as soon as possible. Secondly, it was convenient for readers to receive tips for novel authors. In the past, readers who wanted to give tips had to go to the strange Interest Pavilion workshop in the east of Chang City. Now, there was no need to go through so much trouble. You only needed to go to the kiosk near your home, tell the person in charge how much you wanted to give, and then pay the money to receive the fan badge. It couldn't be more convenient. Of course, if you were worried that the person in charge of the kiosk would embezzle the money you gave, it would only prove that you were thinking too simply. The distribution and sale of every fan badge in the workshop were recorded. Every month, there would be a professional to check the account. Once someone was found to be embezzling, there was nothing much to say. They would be fired immediately and never hired again. Obviously, no one was willing to give up such good benefits in the workshop to do such sneaky things. As a result, the number of fans of every author in Tang Daily's novel section increased exponentially. This was especially true for A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Up until now, the word count of A Mortal's Journey to Immortality had almost reached 1 million words, and the total number of fans had exceeded 30,000. This made the other authors envious and jealous. What do you mean by a county's man's wife retreating with wisdom? I don't care about that. Hurry up and get me a newspaper. I want to read A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Yes, yes, yes. Brother, you're a kindred spirit. I'm also a loyal reader of A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. I saw Han Li enter the forbidden bloody ground yesterday. I should know what's inside today. Yo. Brother, you're also reading A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. Soulmate. Haha. I'm guessing that there must be magical treasures and pills in the forbidden bloody ground. Hee hee. I'm guessing that there must be beauties. Han Li is so powerful now, but he still doesn't have a bed-warming maid. That's not suitable. Waha. Brother, you're right. The two bookworms were talking about the plot in front of the group. They seemed to appreciate each other and regretted that they had not met earlier. However, the people behind them were not having it. Sigh. I say, are you two done yet? Isn't it just a stupid novel? Other than training, leveling up, and finding treasures in arcane realms, what's the point of it? Look at how useless the two of you are. That's right. That A Mortal's Journey to Immortality isn't that good either. It's the same thing over and over again. It's okay when you first read it, but it's boring after reading it for too long. The other person quickly chimed in. The two people in front of the group were not having it. Hey, are you two here to pick a fight? If you think A Mortal's Journey to Immortality isn't good, go write one yourself. That's right. Do you have A Mortal's Journey to Immortality medals? Did you see it? Branch leader. I'm the branch leader of A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. I didn't say that the novel was bad, so what right do you have to say? The person behind said unhappily, Humph, isn't it just a medal? What's so great about it? Hey, why are you still here if you don't have a medal? Go back and spout sh*t. You're still in the right to read novels for free? Who read novels for free? The money I used to buy newspapers isn't money. The young man in the lead said disdainfully, How can there be such a shameless person like you? Do you want to read newspapers for free? Chapter 533. The quarrel between the mortal fans was just a small interlude. Near the other newsstands, there were still many people attracted by the Tang Daily's headlines. The wife of a county man repulsed 1,000 women in wisdom? Which county man's wife? Could it be the bride that Li Xianxing just married a while ago? Quick, quick, give me a copy of the newspaper. Give me one too. It's definitely not Li County man's wife. Haven't you heard of the saying repulsed 1,000 women in wisdom? How can the girl that Li County man married have such ability? A slightly older middle-aged man in the back said in disbelief. Hey, what are you saying? Can't Li County man's wife repulsed 1,000 women in wisdom? I think the girl is quite good. I heard that she's a beauty from the surrounding villages. Hee. Beauty? Can beauty be eaten? Ignorant. You're the one who's ignorant. Didn't you say that it's impossible for her to be Li County man's wife? Let's see and we'll know. Let's see then. Who's afraid of who? Some people were arguing over the main character in the headlines, while others had already bought the newspaper and were discussing the content. These shrews are really despicable. Relying on their husband's military achievements, they actually bullied Li County man's family. He's the benefactor of us poor children. How dare they? Yeah. How despicable. The imperial court can't blame Li County man for losing the war. I really don't know what they're thinking. Under the arbor of a tea house, a few young people couldn't help but complain as they read the newspaper. Luckily, Li County man's wife is quite quick-witted. Otherwise, Li County man's reputation would have been ruined by these people. Indeed, but this old Madame Zhao also came at the right time, and she's much more righteous than those shrews. Hey, I know this old Madame Zhao. Her son is in the Imperial Army and lives in the south of the city. I didn't expect that. Fei-Chen, you know her? Then when you have time, bring us to visit this old madam. I'm afraid that even scholars like us can't compare to such a person who understands the principles of righteousness. That's right, these three were Jin Yu Academy's Hua Hongyi, Chen Tianhua, and Liao Feichen. However, the three of them were no longer as poor as they used to be. Chen Tianhua and Liao Feichen both published novels on Tang daily. Although they were not as popular as The Legend of a Mortal's Journey to Immortality, their monthly income was still slightly higher than ordinary people. So now they could occasionally drink tea and go shopping. Yeah. Especially when the auntie said, "My son has already shed blood on the battlefield. We can't let him shed tears in the underworld because of these vile people who use his name to do whatever they want." I was very touched. To be able to say such words, this Auntie Zhao is a person worthy of my, Chen Tianhua's, respect. That's right, that's right. However, those women still have a conscience and didn't ask for the compensation money from the Li family. Otherwise, I, Hua Hongyi, would personally go and judge these people. That's right. At least they have a conscience. The widow of a meritorious official is being unreasonable, and the wife of a county magistrate is retreating with wisdom? What widow of a meritorious official? What retreating with wisdom? How arrogant! Laifu, go buy a newspaper for this old man. A vigorous voice came from a dark red carriage on the road. Yes, old master. The coachman outside the carriage responded and trotted to the newsstand to buy the newspaper. 15 minutes later. Preposterous! This group of shrews is really unreasonable. Even if Li Zixuan is responsible for the defeat of the Imperial Army in the Battle of Snake Spirit Mountain, he can't take full responsibility. Besides, the Imperial Court has already given them compensation, and this group of people actually ran to Li Zixuan's house to ask for money. How insatiable! These wicked people should be arrested and punished. That's not right. These people can actually gather in front of the Li family's house at such a time. There must be some dirty tricks behind this. The person in the carriage was Wei Jing, who was rushing to the morning court. At this moment, he was muttering to himself as he read the headlines. From a certain perspective, the appearance of Tang daily could be said to have provided Wei Jing with a lot of material to remonstrate with. In the past, he had to personally go to the grassroots and find out where the officials were neglecting their duties, taking bribes, or where the citizens were being bullied. Then, he would organize them into memorials and impeach them in the morning court. But now, he only needed to find some unfair or illegal matters in the newspaper and then bring it to the imperial court to ask for the emperor's judgment. Haha. Good. This granddaughter of Du Dowling is really not ordinary. Not only does she make good wine, but she also has such quick wit. She's really not simple. Wei Jing couldn't help but laugh when he saw Han Yushi arguing with the group of women. Good. Good. This Madame Zhao is really a hero among women. She gave birth to a Qilin son who fought for the country and sacrificed his life. She is also deeply righteous. How rare! She deserves a reward. She deserves a reward. This old man wants to ask for a reward for this person. When he saw old Madame Zhao appear later, Wei Jing couldn't help but slam the table and shout loudly. Oh, don't let the hero bleed and cry. This person called Little Yu summed it up well in the end. Tang daily is really full of talents. Therefore, a morning court that was supposed to be very calm was stirred up again because of the headlines of Tang daily. After the ministers condemned Jiang Tsuehua and the other women, Wei Jing stepped out of the crowd and asked for a reward for old Madame Zhao. It was rare for this old troll to ask for a reward for others. Li Er also gave face, mainly because he originally planned to give old Madame Zhao some rewards, and issued an edict on the spot to give old Madame Zhao the title of a 7th-rank noble lady. Yes, there was no doubt that the Tang Dynasty already had the saying of a noble lady. Since the Han Dynasty, the wives of the princes, dukes, and ministers, that is, those who were in power and above, were called madams. The Tang, Song, Ming, and Qing dynasties also gave the mothers or wives of high officials additional titles and were called noble ladies. The imperial edict as a royal document began in the Western Zhou dynasty. For example, the Shangshu Zhoushu contained the Great Edict, Tang Edict, Kong Wang's Edict, and so on. It was a document that the Zhou emperor used to warn his officials. Qin Dun did not use it. It was occasionally used in the Han dynasty, and was not used regularly. The Tang dynasty used imperial edicts to punish and reward. However, the imperial edict system was gradually perfected during the Ming and Qing dynasties and formed a complete system. With Li Er's edict, the other families who had gone to the Li family to cause trouble were even more terrified. They didn't expect that such a small matter would be heard by the heavens. Moreover, Li Er rewarded Madame Zhao. Didn't he mean that he was dissatisfied with their actions? Therefore, Jiang Cuihua, who was still in prison, was cursed over and over again by countless people. Chapter 534. F***ck. This godforsaken place is so unlucky. There are so many mosquitoes at night. Qing Chumo raised his head, lying on the back of the horse, and said with a sad face. Unlike the other young masters of the rich and powerful families, Qing Chumo was not someone who could not bear hardships. A few years ago, he had gone to war with Qing Yaojin, Li Jing, and the others. Even so, the mosquitoes last night were still unbearable for him. Not only did the mosquitoes around Snake Spirit Mountain suck blood, they were also F***king poisonous. Although it was only mildly poisonous and not fatal, it was still enough to make one suffer. Qing Chumo's face, which was not handsome to begin with, was already covered in red bumps. This fellow was still scratching everywhere, as if he would not stop until his skin was broken. I think this place is pretty good. Yuchi Baolin chuckled as he sat on his horse. Speaking of which, it was strange. Qing Chumo slept in the same tent as him, but the mosquitoes only bit Qing Chumo. Yuchi Baolin was completely fine. He was still white and chubby, no, black and chubby. It would have been better if Yuchi Baolin had not spoken, but the moment he did, Qing Chumo was a little angry. F***ck Baolin, you're still being sarcastic here. Why don't those mosquitoes bite you? Is it because you're too fat? Yuchi Baolin said embarrassedly. Maybe it's because I'm too dark and those mosquitoes can't see me at night. Why don't you bask in the sun more, brother Chonyo? You'll be like me then. Scram! Qing Chumo scolded angrily. If I look like a coal ball like you, how am I going to find a wife? Yuchi Baolin laughed dryly. He looked at the sky and said, Brother Chonyo, today is the third day. Why isn't Shaoxian here yet? Do you think he hasn't thought of a way yet? Qing Chumo's brows furrowed slightly, but they immediately smoothed out. He sat up straight and said, That won't happen. Ever since I've known little Xian, I've never seen him stumped by anything. He'll definitely come today. Okay. Zhao Song. Is there any movement on Li Zishuan's side? Afternoon, in the Sweet Dew Hall. Li Er asked casually as he read through the memorials. Your Majesty, Li Xianan should still be in the workshop and hasn't done anything yet. Zhao Song replied softly. Oh? Isn't today the third day? Did I remember the wrong date? Li Er put down his brush and asked doubtfully. Your Majesty, you didn't remember wrongly. Today is the third day of the 3-day period proposed by Li Xianan. Hey, that's strange. This kid is still cooped up in the workshop. Is he at his wit's end? Do you know what he did in the workshop 2 days ago? Li Er furrowed his brows and asked in bewilderment. Zhao Song bowed and said, Your Majesty, Li Xianan is a martial arts grandmaster. This old servant's subordinates didn't dare to get too close to him and could only wait outside the workshop. Therefore, this old servant has no way of knowing what Li Xianan did in the past 2 days. I only know that he entered the workshop 2 days ago, and hasn't come out since. Li Er nodded. After pondering for a long time, he sighed and said, "It's getting harder and harder to see through this kid. Right now, all the people of Chang are waiting for the results of the Imperial Army's second expedition against the 7 cultivators of true virtue. He better not make a fool of himself at this critical moment." When Li Zixuan declared that he would destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue with his own strength, Li Er still had some confidence in Li Zixuan. After all, Li Zixuan had given him too many surprises before. However, after so many days, Li Zixuan still hadn't made any move. Li Er's heart turned cold. At this time, he only hoped that Li Zixuan wouldn't make a fool of himself and lose face for the imperial court. As for the 7 cultivators of true virtue, it wouldn't be too late to attack them after the army regrouped. "Senior Marshal Brother, how are your injuries?" Snake Spirit Mountain, inside the secret chamber of the 7 cultivators of true virtue. Snake King looked at the imposing Batian in front of him and asked excitedly. Speaking of which, these 2 martial brothers could be considered as brothers in distress. Previously, Snake King was injured by Li Zixuan and returned to this secret room to recuperate. 2 days ago, it was Baishan's turn. However, Baishan's injuries weren't as serious as Snake King's. Moreover, the recovery ability of a peak Grandmaster Realm expert was even more outstanding. Therefore, he was able to recover in just a few days. Haha. Junior Marshal Brother, you guessed right. My injuries are completely healed. Batian laughed and jumped down from the stone bed. Then, he asked with a concerned face, "Junior Marshal Brother, how is your body?" Haha. Senior Marshal Brother, it's good that you're fine. As for my injuries, I'm already very lucky to be able to keep my life. In the past few days, Batian was the only one here to recuperate. Snake King felt that there was no hope for him to fully recover, so he gave up on recuperating. Baishan's face darkened and he said hatefully, "It's all because of that little bastard Li Zixuan. We were originally living in peace, but that brat wanted to destroy our sect. Now, both of us are injured and crippled. I, Batian, am not a man if I don't take revenge. Senior Marshal Brother is right. I have no other wish in this life except to kill Li Zixuan. It's all up to Senior Marshal Brother." Snake King's eyes flashed with a trace of fierceness as he hurriedly pleaded loudly. Batian immediately said with a murderous look, "Don't worry, Junior Marshal Brother. Once the Imperial Army retreats, I'll take you and your brothers to find a place to settle down. Then, I'll come back to settle the score with that brat. I'll kidnap his wife first, kill his parents, and then slowly torture him. Ha ha. Senior Marshal Brother, this is a good plan. We should let that brat have a taste of our strength. By the way, Junior Marshal Brother, are you still suffering from the backlash of the 7 Virtues Snake?" A trace of pain flashed across Snake King's face. He nodded and said, "Now that I've lost all my internal force, I can barely control the 7 Virtues Snake with the power of the bloodline. It's reasonable for me to suffer from the backlash, but I'm afraid that I can't hold on for long. But what if that brat leads his army to attack the mountain after the 7 Virtues Snake is out of our control? What should we do?" Baishan's face gradually became serious. He frowned and pondered for a long time. Then, he said decisively, "Then, let's launch a surprise attack on them while we still have the strength to fight. Junior Marshal Brother, you can control the 7 Virtues Snake to open the way, and I'll detonate all the poisonous pills in the sect from behind. We can take advantage of the chaos to break out of the encirclement. What do you think?" Snake King was shocked when he heard this. However, after thinking about it carefully, he felt that there was no better way at present. So, he nodded and said, "I'll listen to Senior Marshal Brother's arrangement. But Senior Marshal Brother, you have to hurry. I can control the 7 Virtues Snake at most for 3 more days." "Okay. Then let's make preparations today. Before dawn tomorrow, when the army is still asleep, we'll catch them off guard." Chapter 535. Xianji, did you arrange for those women in Datong daily to cause trouble at the Li Mansion? South of Chong and City, Dunhua Square. In a quaint room of the wealthy house, the white-haired old man leaned on the couch and looked at the young man standing below and asked in a deep voice, "Granduncle, this is all my fault for not thinking it through. Please forgive me." Hearing this, the young man bowed and said with a frightened expression, "Ha ha. Xianji, you gave advice to the family. What's wrong with that?" The white-haired old man laughed loudly and raised his hand, indicating for the young man to stand up. Then he continued, "Xianji, your plan is a good one. If it's well planned, we can ruin Li Zixuan's reputation without any effort. But the bad thing is that Xianji, you met the wrong person and acted a little too hastily." The young man hurriedly said, "Granduncle is right. Xianji really did not think it through this time." The white-haired old man showed a gratified expression and said, "Those in power must learn to know how to use people well. Jiang Cuihua is obviously not a person who can take on big responsibilities. Xianji, you must learn from this in the future. Don't ruin things because of these incompetent people." "Yes, Granduncle." Although the young man disagreed in his heart, he did not show it on his face. He pretended very well. "That's right. Have you arranged for the meeting of the big families tomorrow?" The white-haired old man was suddenly startled and raised his eyes to ask. "Granduncle, don't worry. Everything has been arranged. There won't be any mistakes," the young man said confidently. The white-haired old man nodded and laughed, "Ha ha. Xianji, I still believe in your ability to do things. Tomorrow's meeting is also a good time for you juniors to get to know each other better." The young man smiled and said, "Actually, Xianji has the same idea. Excluding the royal family, there are only 6 of us left in the 5 families and 7 sects, and we all have our own camp. Now, the Wang family of Taiyuan is still estranged from us and is getting closer and closer to the royal family. In the long run, we will be divided by the emperor. Therefore, I also think that the aristocratic families should contact each other." The white-haired old man agreed and said, "Xianji, you understand it best. Those old fellows are not as good as you. Now that we can't count on Snake Spirit Mountain, it's up to you, Xianji." "Granduncle, speaking of the Snake Spirit Mountain, my father heard some news." The white-haired old man frowned and asked, "What news?" The young man stepped forward and whispered, "My father heard that the imperial court has sent 10,000 soldiers to surround the Snake Spirit Mountain. However, they will only surround it and not attack." "Why?" "It's said that Li Zixuan made a military order in front of the emperor, saying that he wanted to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself. The imperial court only needed to send an army to surround the Serpent Spirit Mountain." The white-haired old man was stunned at first, then he laughed and said, "Ha ha ha. This kid really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Shameless boasting, shameless boasting. If the 7 cultivators of true virtue sect was so easy to destroy, how could he have returned with 4,000 imperial guards in defeat? I thought this kid would be a good opponent, but I didn't expect him to be an arrogant brat who only knows how to talk big. Xianji, you can help Li Zixuan spread the news." "Spread the news?" The young man was puzzled, but then he suddenly understood and laughed. "Granduncle is wise. In this way, we will be able to defeat Li Zixuan without any effort. This grandson will send someone to spread the news early tomorrow morning." Although the news that Li Zixuan wanted to destroy the 7 cultivators of true virtue by himself was not a top-secret military intelligence, the only people who knew about it were the few big shots who went to the Sweet Dew Hall to discuss the matter that day. They would never spread the news. As for the man named Xianji, it was somewhat inconceivable that his father could get hold of this news. Now that 3 days had passed and the sky was about to turn dark, nothing had happened. Those who knew about this news gradually began to doubt Li Zixuan's bold words and believed that Li Zixuan was going to die this time. Li Zixuan didn't know what others were thinking. He was making the final preparations for his expedition and was responsible for his own safety. The kerosene is full. It should be enough to fly to Snake Spirit Mountain. These bombs should be enough to blow up a mountain. The ropes are tied tight, the tarpaulin is not damaged, and the bombs have isolated the source of the fire. Oh, what a waste! Lai Tzu. After Li Zixuan carefully checked everything from top to bottom, inside and out, he jumped into the square rattan basket. Ignite the fire. With a whoosh, the kerosene was ignited. The fuel tank that contained the kerosene was specially made by Li Zixuan, and it could control the intensity of the fire. Not long after, the huge, ball-shaped oilcloth quickly swelled up. Gradually, the rattan basket left the ground and slowly rose into the sky. The 3rd day of the 8th month of the 1st year of Zhenguan. It was a night with a light breeze. In the east of Chang'an City, a bright flame suddenly rose from the workshop of the strange interest pavilion and slowly flew out of the city. The first to notice this strange scene was the spy sent by Zhao Song outside the strange interest pavilion. "Boss, look, there's a ghost fire in the sky." T, there's no ghost. What's that? The leader of the men was about to reprimand his subordinates when he inadvertently saw the flame in the sky and was instantly scared out of his wits. The night in this era was different from the modern era. There were no street lights here and no nightlife. Once night fell, there was only pure darkness. Therefore, that flame looked extremely dazzling. Boss. That flame flew out of the workshop. Could it be that there's a ghost in the workshop? A short man couldn't help but cower and say, "Smack." The leader of the men slapped him and scolded, "Chen Nan, you little bastard, don't scare yourself. I've lived for so many years and have seen everything, but I've never seen a ghost." Yes, boss is wise. The leader of the men snorted and said, "You guys continue to keep an eye here. I'll go back and report the situation here to Zhao Song's husband." The eunuchs of the Tang Dynasty were often referred to as husband. This husband is not that husband, don't get the wrong idea. Boss. Don't. It's better to let this little brother take care of such a troublesome matter. The rest of the men were stunned. By the time they reacted and said this, their boss had already disappeared without a trace. Speaking of which, even Li Zixuan himself probably didn't expect that the debut of his hot air balloon in Tang Dynasty would be mistaken as a ghost fire by these idiots. Chapter 536. Mother, brother, look, someone is releasing a sky lantern. Guy Lane, Meng Wenhao's house. After dinner, Yaya came to the courtyard and inadvertently saw a bright flame floating in the sky in the northeast direction. The little girl couldn't help but shout excitedly in that direction. The so-called sky lantern was another name for the Kongming lantern. It was commonly known as the wishing lantern or the praying lantern. It was an ancient handicraft of China. In ancient times, it was mostly used for military purposes, but some people would release it on major festivals such as the Lantern Festival and the Mid-Autumn Festival to make wishes and pray. There were two theories about the origin of the Kongming lantern. One was that during the 5 dynasties there was a woman named Xin Qinyang. When she was fighting in Fujian with her husband, she used bamboo strips to make a square frame, pasted paper on it, and made it into a lamp. Burning pine resin was placed on the chassis, and the lamp flew into the sky with the hot air as a military communication signal. This kind of pine resin lamp was called the Kongming lantern in Sichuan. The main reason was that this kind of lantern looked like the hat worn by Zhuge Liang, hence the name. The other theory was that it was invented by Zhuge Liang during the Three Kingdoms. At that time, Zhuge Liang was besieged in Pingyang and couldn't send troops out of the city to ask for help. Kongming calculated the direction of the wind and made a floating paper lantern. He tied the paper lantern with a message asking for help. After that, he really got out of danger, so the later generations called this kind of lantern the Kongming lantern. No matter which theory was correct, it was an indisputable fact that there were already Kongming lanterns in the Tang Dynasty. That's true, but there are still more than 10 days before the Mid-Autumn Festival. Why would someone release a sky lantern at this time? Meng Wenhao's mother heard her daughter's scream and ran out to see the commotion. After seeing the flame clearly, she said with some doubts, "Mother, that's not a sky lantern." Meng Wenhao said sullenly at this time, and then he gestured with his hands. "That ball of fire is at least 4 to 5 miles away from us. Generally speaking, the farther something is, the smaller it looks. Now that we can see it so clearly from such a distance, it means that this thing is at least dozens of times bigger than an ordinary sky lantern. It's definitely not a sky lantern." Meng Wenhao's mother thought carefully and felt that her son's words made sense, but she still had some doubts. "But if it's not a sky lantern, what else can it fly so high?" "I don't know." Meng Wenhao shook his head and said, "But my master definitely knows." Meng Wenhao's mother rubbed her son's head. "Yes, yes, yes. How's your master is the best. All of you should go and rest early." You still have to go to Minister Hu's grain store tomorrow to settle the accounts." Meng Wenhao's father had been out at sea for almost 3 months. Now that the pillar of the family was gone, Meng Wenhao had no choice but to step up. Therefore, he took advantage of the 2-month farmland leave to find a job to supplement the family. The other party was Squire Hu's family that Mother Meng often worked for. As for his position, he was the bookkeeper. Relying on the glorious halo of being the top scorer in the School of Mathematics and the advanced mathematical knowledge in his mind, Meng Wenhao alone was equivalent to 10 of the Hu family's original bookkeepers. Thus, Squire Hu not only treated him with special respect, but also gave him an unusually high salary. Meng Wenhao replied in a muffled voice, but his expression became somewhat strange. "Your Majesty, according to the report, a big ball of fire just flew out of the workshop of the interesting pavilion, and it's flying northeast. It should be out of the city soon." In the Swede Du Hall, Li Er rubbed his sore wrist, and was about to return to Zhang Xuan's place to sleep when Zhao Song suddenly rushed in and reported, "A flying ball of fire?" Li Er frowned and his face became a little strange. After a while, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly stood up. "Let's go to the Xuanwu Gate." The Xuanwu Gate, the north gate of the Taiji Palace, was located on the slope of the Dragon Head Plain. It overlooked the entire Chang'an city and was an important gate in the north of the palace. Of course, compared to its geographical location, the Xuanwu Gate was more famous for its political and military position. After all, there was a change of regime here last year. In fact, in a few years, a bigger and more magnificent building would be built here, and that would be the famous Daming Palace. It could be seen even from outside Chang'an city. If there were no accidents, Li Er would order it to be built in the 8th year of Jingguan. "Your Majesty, look! It's that ball of fire. It should be flying out of Chang'an city soon." Zhao Song pointed to the eastern sky and said to Li Er when they came to the tower of the Xuanwu Gate. Li Er nodded and responded, but his eyes were staring in that direction without blinking. Zhao Song did not know why Li Er was so focused, but he did not dare to ask. He just stood at the side with his head lowered. "Let's go back to the palace." After a long time, the ball of fire became smaller and smaller until it finally disappeared. Li Er flung his sleeves and turned to leave. He left a sentence in the air, but it stunned Zhao Song. "When Li Zishuan returns to the city tomorrow, ask him to come and see me immediately." Zhao Song frowned and followed behind Li Er. He wondered, isn't Li Zishuan still in the workshop now? Why does Your Majesty have to wait for him to return to the city tomorrow? A punch to the left, a punch to the right, I urge everyone to take a punch. Li Zishuan couldn't care less about how depressed Zhao Song was. He was busy cleaning up the mess he had made up in the past. When the hot air balloon flew into the sky earlier, he regretted it. That was because the wind was blowing from the south, and the Qinling Mountains were northeast of Chang'an City. The wind direction was not suitable at all. If Li Zishuan did nothing and let the ball of fire fly freely, it would definitely not reach the Snake Spirit Mountain. It would only fly further and further to the north. Back then, when Kongming made the Kongming Lantern to ask for help, he had already calculated the direction of the wind. Although Li Zishuan was a Taoist, he did not learn the ability to calculate. Hence, he was a little confused when he flew up. This was really the only thing that he had missed out on. Fortunately, Li Zishuan was smart enough to come up with this idea. He kept throwing punches to the west. His punches were infused with true qi. Using the recoil force of his punches and the push of the south wind, Li Zishuan limped towards the northeast with the ball in tow. Those who had learned force analysis would definitely be able to analyze it. Damn it! Does this count as a rocket with its own gas tank? Li Zishuan mumbled gloomily as he worked in the air. Ahem, I have to admit that his description was very apt. Chapter 537. Huh? Brother Chonyo, it's already so late. Where are you going? Shh. Bao Lin, lower your voice. At the base of Snake Spirit Mountain. In the darkness, a fat man and a little girl were huddled together and whispering to each other. Bao Lin, I think little Xian should be here soon. I plan to go out and take a look. Do you want to come with me? Ah? But it's already the second night watch period. The military has a rule that other than the soldiers on night duty, no one else is allowed to run around at night. If we get caught, Uncle Nyo will beat us up. Hey! I say, why are you so stupid? Can't we just be smart and not get caught? Just tell me if you want to go or not. The fat shadow scratched his head and said, All right, I'll go with you. Hey! That's more like it. Second senior brother. Second senior brother. Why are you sleeping? If the soldiers at the base of the mountain attack, we'll be finished. On the mountain path of Snake Spirit Mountain, an anxious call came from a thatched hut that was temporarily built at the checkpoint. Woo! Stop messing around. In a few more hours we'll be breaking out of the mountain. Wang Lin, you brat, why don't you sleep a little longer? In the hut, the man on the bed turned around but didn't get up. He muttered impatiently. Huff, huff. Ruhua. I'll be able to go down the mountain to find you soon. You still want to escape? If you don't listen to me, I'll kill those two old things. Ha! After a short while, the man seemed to have fallen asleep and was still muttering. The skinny young man beside the bed was speechless. He pushed the man on the bed twice and shouted, Second senior brother, you can't sleep. If the Imperial Army attacks at this time, we can only wait for death. Second senior brother, quickly get up. Hey hey hey! I say, Wang Lin, aren't you annoying? The man on the bed finally couldn't stand the disturbance and sat up. He reprimanded, What are you doing here instead of sleeping? The army at the foot of the mountain has been surrounding us for more than a day or two. If those cowards dared to attack us, they would have attacked us during the day. Why would they wait until nighttime? Our Snake Spirit Mountain's terrain is so steep. If they really dare to come up at this time, I'll do a handstand and eat shit. The young man at the side was scolded until he retreated. In the end, he muttered, Second senior brother, this. How do I eat shit while standing upside down? The expression on the second senior brother's face suddenly froze. You. He pointed at the young man under the bed and couldn't say anything else for a long time. After taking a few deep breaths, he roared, Wang Lin. Get the hell out of here. You're sleeping outside tonight. Right here. We'll wait here for little Xian. Inside the camp, after Qing Chumo and Yuchi Baolin avoided several waves of guards, they came to a bush on a small hill nearby. Ching Chumo turned back and said proudly, I'm sure you're right. Baolin, how is it? You won't be discovered if you follow me, right? Yuchi Baolin nodded like a chick pecking at rice. He said in amazement, Big Brother Chonyo, you're really amazing. But how do you know when there's no guard on the road? You're the only one who doesn't know. Brother, I already figured out the night guard rotation pattern here. Ching Chumo's tail was wagging as he showed off. Yuchi Baolin immediately looked at him with admiration. He looked around and asked in a rough voice, but it's already so late. Can little Xian still come? Did we wait for nothing? Haha. Don't worry, kid. Ching Chumo patted Yuchi Baolin's shoulder and smiled. Although little Xian likes to boast, he always comes true. This time won't be an exception. Isn't it only midnight now? I'm sure he'll come before midnight. After all, today's the last day of the 3-day period. Let's wait here. We can see the Yuan Gate from here. If he comes, we'll be the first to see him. Okay. I'll listen to you. Yuchi Baolin nodded and squatted down as well. Unexpectedly, the moment he squatted down, he heard Ching Chumo yelling exaggeratedly. Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Baolin, look! Big Brother Chonyo, what are you looking at? There's no moon tonight. Yuchi Baolin was puzzled. Moon my ass. Look up. This guy is prettier than the moon. What the heck? Why is this ball of fire flying so high? Ching Chumo slapped the back of Yuchi Baolin's head, then raised his head and exclaimed in surprise. Out of curiosity, Yuchi Baolin looked up as well. What he saw was incredible. Roar! Oh my god! Brother Chonyo, let's run! This ball of willow, the wisp, we can't beat it. Let's go back and call for help. When Yuchi Baolin saw the flying ball of fire, he was so scared that he jumped up and shouted in panic. Shut up! What willow, the wisp? There seems to be someone up there. Coincidentally, the ball of fire was getting closer and closer to their heads. Ching Chumo had good eyesight and could vaguely see someone dancing up there. He hurriedly covered Yuchi Baolin's mouth and scolded him. Whoa! Shut up! There seems to be a fairy up there. Yes, that's a fairy descending to the mortal world. Oh my god, did the heavens see that I, old Ching, am still single and sent me a fairy? Hey, why did she run away? Good and evil will be repaid, and the heavens will reincarnate. Today, the heavens have bestowed justice upon me, and I'll use lightning and fire to purify you sinful sinners. Silence reigned on Serpent Spirit Mountain. Just as everyone was about to fall asleep, a loud bellow came from the 9 heavens. Everyone immediately woke up from their dreams. Which scoundrel dares to behave atrociously in my 7 cultivators' sect? Batian dashed out of his room and was shocked when he saw the flying ball of fire in the sky. However, he pretended to be calm and shouted, I'm your grandfather. That wasn't the only thing that came from the sky. There were also 4 or 5 black iron balls with sparks on them. Child's play. Batian thought that they were hidden weapons. He took 2 steps back to avoid them and sneered at the sky. However, before he could finish his sentence, he felt several earth-shattering heat waves coming from all over his body. Boom, 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 boom. Sand and stones flew everywhere, and the sound shook the sky. The peaceful Serpent Spirit Mountain peak instantly turned into a living hell. Batian, a peak Grandmaster Realm expert, was seriously injured in an instant. Save me! Save me! My leg! My leg! This is the wrath of the heavens! It's over, it's all over! Damn it! Why didn't you run down the mountain with Yunda and the others last time? Li Zishuan didn't show any mercy. He threw the bombs and the hanging basket down as if they were free. The mountain collapsed and the ground caved in. All the houses couldn't withstand the explosion and collapsed in the blink of an eye. Many disciples of the 7 cultivators sect who didn't have time to get out of their houses were buried in the collapsed houses. For a moment, cries for help could be heard everywhere. Senior brother! Senior brother! How did this happen? What happened? Snake King staggered a few steps and came to the side of Batian, who was seriously injured and lying on the ground, and asked in disbelief. Run! Junior brother, quickly take 7 cultivators of true virtue and run away. Run as far as you can. Chapter 538. For the 215 heroic souls who died here 3 days ago, I'm here to avenge you today. I'm going to wipe out the entire Snake Spirit Mountain. Since they were so far away, and the flames of war were raging below, Li Zishuan naturally couldn't see Batian's current situation, nor could he hear the conversation between the flying snake and Batian. He controlled the direction of the hot air balloon while throwing bombs down below, bombarding the area without any blind spots. This guy was now like a fighter pilot flying a bomber. He just wanted to charge and kill. Roar, roar, roar! Just then, a deafening roar came from below. Li Zishuan could clearly hear it from above. It was none other than 7th cultivator of true virtue. Humph! Just in time, you bastard! Li Zishuan quickly searched for 7th cultivator of true virtue's position with his eyes. After a while, he finally found 7th cultivator of true virtue rolling on the ground behind the original hall of the 7 cultivator of true virtue sect. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! Li Zishuan didn't hesitate. He ignited 4 or 5 bombs in a few breaths and then threw them at 7th cultivator of true virtue. Aren't your snake scales as hard as iron? I'd like to see if you can withstand a bomb or not. Boom, 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 boom. Roar! As it turned out, no creature could resist this violent bombardment. The 7th cultivator of true virtue was instantly covered with wounds, and it issued a painful howl. The sound of the howl was even louder than the sound of the explosion, and it reverberated throughout the entire Serpent Mountain. Poison, poison! Upon hearing the howl, the Snake King's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He desperately wanted to run in that direction, but at this moment, he was surrounded by flames and couldn't rush out at all. Moreover, a bomb just happened to detonate right next to him. With a loud boom, the flying snake's limbs were instantly blown off, and he was blown far away, no longer able to speak. Most of the houses in this era were made of wood. After Li Zishuan's previous bombardment, the place had basically turned into a sea of fire. In order to prevent anyone from escaping, he did not hold back and bombarded the top of the mountain twice. A quarter of an hour later, apart from the crackling sound of the burning wood, there were no other cries for help or howls. Li Zishuan finally stopped. He looked at the motionless 7th cultivator of true virtue lying on the ground. Then, he suddenly had an idea and controlled the hot air balloon to slowly descend at the foot of Snake Spirit Mountain. 15 minutes ago. Brother Chonyo, it's almost midnight, let's go back. Little Xian probably won't come. Yuchi Baolin pulled Ching Chumo, who had been looking to the east. That was the direction Li Zishuan had just flown in the hot air balloon, and said in a muffled voice. Sigh. Bao Lin, stop messing around. Didn't you see the fairy dancing for me on the fireball just now? Ching Chumo impatiently slapped Yuchi Baolin's hand away and said with an intoxicated look on his face. I didn't see anything. Yuchi Baolin slightly despised Ching Chumo in his heart. However, he really didn't see clearly whether there was anyone on the fireball just now. His vision was very blurry at night, and he only saw a ball of fire just now. This was more or less what modern people called night blindness. In ancient China, because the ancient people were malnourished, and carrots hadn't been introduced into China at that time, some people believed that the ancient people generally suffered from night blindness. Although this statement was slightly exaggerated, because night blindness was mainly caused by 3 things: disease, congenital heredity, and vitamin A deficiency. The ancient people mainly suffered from malnutrition due to insufficient protein, fat, and sugar intake. Vitamin A deficiency wasn't very serious. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many cases of night battles in history books. However, it was an indisputable fact that the ancient people suffered from night blindness compared to modern people. Sigh. Baolin. It's not that I want to nag at you, but with your eyesight, even if fate comes, you won't be able to see it. If you continue like this, you're probably destined to be single forever. Ching Chumo patted Yuchi Baolin's shoulder and said in a tone that was heavy, and not at all full of shame. If this fellow knew the truth, would he still be as calm as he was now? Huh? Yuchi Baolin glanced at Ching Chumo with an innocent expression. He really got shot even when he was lying down. Boom, 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 boom. At this moment, Ching Chumo and Yuchi Baolin first saw a large patch of bright fire appear on the peak of Snake Spirit Mountain in the east. Right after that, they heard a loud rumble coming from there. The two of them were so shocked that they fell on their butts in the grass. Holy F***CK. Holy F***CK. There's thunder. There's thunder over there. This thunder is too F***king awesome, isn't it? Ching Chumo couldn't be bothered to hide anymore. He jumped up and shouted. That's not thunder. At this moment, Ching Chumo felt a gust of wind by his ear. Then, he heard an extremely calm voice. Ching Chumo subconsciously spat out, Bullsh***. Other than thunder, what else can cause such a Uncle Nyo, why are you here? Ching Chumo turned around and saw who it was. He was tongue-tied. At this moment, he really wanted to slap himself twice. Yuchi Baolin had already wilted when he saw Nyo Jinda. When he heard Ching Chumo's suicidal words, he almost burst out laughing. In any case, this child was having a hard time holding it in. Why am I here? This old man wants to ask the two of you why are you here? Not sleeping in the tent in the middle of the night and going out of the camp without permission. Do you know that you're ignoring military rules? Even if this old man breaks your legs today, Jijia and Jingda will have nothing to say. Nyo Jinda put on a poker face and scolded the two of them coldly. Don't, Uncle Nyo, don't be angry. Baolin and I just needed to pee and came out to pee. Coincidentally, there was thunder over there. Right, you said that it wasn't thunder over there. What was it? Ching Chumo shrunk his neck, licked his face, and cleverly changed the topic. Nyo Jinda glanced at this fellow. How could he not see that Ching Chumo was changing the topic? However, he was just scaring these two children just now. He didn't really want to use military law on them. At this moment, he snorted and said, although this old man doesn't know what it is, it's definitely not thunder, because there won't be rain in the next few days. At this point, he couldn't help but move his legs. When he said that there wouldn't be rain in the next few days, it wasn't because he saw the weather forecast, nor was it because he could predict the weather like Zhuge Liang. It was because he had a rheumatic leg. Besides, what kind of thunder can shake the earth and mountains? With this momentum, the peak of Snake Spirit Mountain is probably going to be flattened. This is probably Xiaoshuan's method. This child really can do what she says? Nyo Jinda stroked his beard and guessed. What? It's Xiaoxian? F***CK vomit? Ching Chumo reacted with a face full of horror. Then, he staggered a few steps and ran to the side to vomit. So, Brother Cho Nyo's fairy is Xiaoxian. Yuchi Baolin scratched his head and laughed foolishly. What fairy? Nyo Jindao was a little confused. Above our heads just now, Yuchi Baolin? If you dare to tell anyone, this old man will definitely kill you. Yuchi Baolin was about to explain when Ching Chumo's angry and sorrowful roar came from the bushes beside them. Chapter 539. Chang'an. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! This old servant has something important to report. West Court, Empress Jiangxuan's bedroom. Zhao Song stood in front of the door with a hunched back. His face was anxious and helpless. He knew better than anyone else that Li Er was probably exercising with Empress Zhongsun at this hour. Whoever dared to disturb them now would not end well. However, Zhao Song was at his wits' end. His subordinates had reported such an important matter to him. If he did not report it to Li Er in time, he would be fully responsible for any accidents that happened. "What's the matter?" After about 3 breaths, Li Er's muffled voice came from the room. It was obvious that he was not in a good mood. No one would be in a good mood if they were woken up in the middle of the night, let alone the ruler of a country. Zhao Song's heart sank. He secretly hated the subordinate who reported this to him. However, now that things had come to this, he had no choice but to say, "Your Majesty, there was thunder and fire in the northeast of Chang'an City. Half the sky is burning red, and that direction is Snake Spirit Mountain. I was worried that the army at the foot of Snake Spirit Mountain would be attacked and the situation would change. That was why I came to report in the middle of the night. I hope your Majesty can forgive me." After Zhao Song finished speaking, the room fell into silence. Li Er did not say anything. Zhao Song could only wait outside the room, not daring to move. After an unknown period of time, Li Er's emotionless voice finally sounded. "I got it. You may leave." Got it? Would it be over just knowing about it? Zhao Song was full of doubts, but he did not dare to ask. He could only bow and yes, then carefully left the courtyard. In the bedroom, Empress Zhongxuan's hair was messy, and her cheeks were slightly red. She leaned on Li Er's shoulder and asked doubtfully, "Erlang, aren't you worried that General Niu's men were attacked at night?" Li Er recovered from his thoughts. He lifted Zhongxuan's chin and smiled confidently. "Haha. 10,000 elites surrounded a small sect of less than 100 people. If the other party gave up the geographical advantage and attacked at night, I can only say that they are tired of living. Moreover, Jinda is very strict in managing the army. He definitely won't let anyone take advantage of the loopholes." A confident man was the most charming. Zhongsun smiled and leaned closer to Li Er. Then he asked, "What happened in the northeast to cause such a big commotion?" Seeing how calm Erlang was, he probably already knew about it, right? "Can you tell me?" Li Er looked towards the northeast with a deep gaze, and then said to Empress Zhongsun with a smile, "Whatever happened over there, Guanyin Maid will know tomorrow. Shouldn't we continue what we were doing just now?" "Ah, no. The weather is dry, be careful of candles." Clang, clang, clang. In this era where there was no TV, internet, or computer, most people would be asleep at this time. However, there was an exception, and that was the night watchman. The job of a night watchman had already appeared in the Zhou dynasty. The rites of Zhou recorded, compare it with the evening strike of the scorpion. According to the Tsihai's explanation, it was strike the scorpion in the night, which was the same as the most commonly used clapper. The curfew system in Chang'an City was only for ordinary people. The night watchman was not included in this list. This was because the night watchman's function was not only to report the time, but also to patrol at night and prevent fire and theft. If they encountered someone stealing, they could report it to the authorities and get a generous reward. Therefore, the night watchman was a very respected job in ancient times. Yongla Lane. 2 old men in blue clothes and blue hat. One was holding a gong, and the other was beating at the side, singing the same tune. Why were the 2 of them doing the night watch together? It was mainly to boost each other's courage. After all, there were no street lights at this time, and it was dark all around. Anyone would be afraid. As usual, the 2 planned to go home and rest for an hour after this time. At this time, a fire suddenly floated over from the sky. What was even more strange was that there seemed to be a long thing hanging under the fire. Ghost, 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 ghost. Huayan, run. Demon. Demon. Oh my God. Changui, wait for me. Both of them had a look of horror on their faces. They didn't even want the things in their hands and immediately ran away. Huff, huff, huff. Damn, this is really not something a human should do. No matter what, I won't act cool next time. I'll just stay at home and hug my wife. In the sky, Li Zixuan looked at the familiar mansion below, took a few deep breaths, and said gloomily. The straight-line distance from Chang'an City to Snake Spirit Mountain was at least more than 20 kilometers in the sky. He had to act as a human-shaped engine twice, and the worst thing was that the wind was against him when he came back. How could he not be tired? Even a Grandmaster expert would be exhausted like a dog. Thank goodness, thank goodness! I've finally succeeded in acting cool this time, and I've avenged those people. I can go home and rest in peace. Li Zixuan controlled the hot air balloon to the sky above the Li residence. Then, he slowly turned off the fire and planned to let the hot air balloon slowly descend to the west courtyard. Bam! If he wanted to land, he had to unload the goods first. Li Zixuan let the hot air balloon descend 10 meters from the ground and untied the rope that tied the corpse of 7th cultivator of true virtue. With a bang, the corpse of the giant snake fell to the ground. Then, he prepared to let the basket land. Which scoundrel dares to steal from the Li residence? The head of the guards of the Li residence was awakened by the sound of the giant snake falling to the ground. He hurriedly ran to the west courtyard and shouted in a deep voice. Then, he was about to barge in. It's me. Feijai. It's none of your business. Go and rest. Li Zixuan said in a deep voice. Pang Feiji was stunned. Then, he said in surprise, Is Lord Zhu back? He also stopped in his tracks. He was so anxious just now that he almost forgot the rules. There were women living in the west courtyard. It was not convenient for him to go in. Okay. Go and rest. Don't disturb others. Li Zixuan nodded indifferently. Then, he continued to control the hot air balloon to land. Pang Feiji could only vaguely see the faint light of the fire in the courtyard. He hurriedly said, Yes, Lord Zhu. After saying that, he retreated. Heh. I sneaked out of the city and returned in triumph. Does this count as me sneaking out of the city and not taking advantage of the situation? Li Zixuan jumped out of the basket, turned off the hot air balloon, and roughly cleaned it up. Then, he dragged the corpse of 7th cultivator of true virtue to an open space at the side and muttered to himself. Husband, you're back. At this moment, the door opened and the candlelight in the house also jumped out. Han Yushi, who was wearing a thin pink cloak, stood at the door and smiled at Li Zixuan. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.